Hello beautiful people. Welcome to Gringotts Hub. In today's episode, we explore, what if Harry was summoned by Gringotts at age 6 and discovered he was the Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell. Hit like, subscribe, and join our community of story lovers. Let's begin. Chapter 1, The Goblin's Letter. The letter came on a Tuesday, which Harry thought was odd because nothing interesting ever happened on Tuesdays. He was weeding Aunt Petunia's garden when it arrived, not delivered by a postman or dropped through the mail slot, but simply there, suddenly resting on the soil between his dirt-caked fingers as if it had always existed. A small envelope, barely larger than a playing card, made of something that wasn't quite paper. It felt like metal that had been pressed impossibly thin, and it shimmered gold in the weak morning sunlight. Harry sat back on his heels and looked at it. No one had ever sent him a letter. No one had ever sent him anything. He was 6 years old, and the sum total of things he owned could fit inside the cupboard under the stairs, which was convenient, since that's where he slept. He glanced back at the house. The kitchen window was empty. Aunt Petunia was watching her morning program, and Uncle Vernon had left for work an hour ago. Dudley was still asleep, because Dudley was always still asleep at this hour. Harry turned the envelope over. On the front, in ink that seemed to shift between black and dark green, were words, "To Harold James Potter, last of his blood, the matter of his inheritance being most urgent." From the desk of account manager Ironclaw, Gringotts Wizarding Bank. He mouthed the words silently. Wizarding Bank. He didn't know what that meant, but something in his chest tightened, not with fear, but with recognition, the way you might feel hearing a song you'd forgotten you knew. Harry slid his thumbnail under the seal. The envelope opened with a soft click, like a lock turning, and the letter inside unfolded itself. Mr. Potter, you are hereby summoned to Gringotts Wizarding Bank, Diagon Alley, London, regarding matters of inheritance, estate, and bloodline that require your immediate presence. Multiple accounts and vaults under your name have been accessed without proper authorization. As the last living heir of the Potter line, your attendance is not optional. This letter will serve as transport. Speak the word Gringotts clearly while holding it, and you will be brought to us. We await your arrival. Ironclaw Senior Account Manager, Ancient Houses Division. Harry read it twice. Then a third time. The smart thing to do, the Dursley thing to do, would be to throw it away. Go back to weeding. Pretend this had never happened. That's what good, normal boys did. They didn't read letters about wizards and banks and inheritance. Harry had never been a good, normal boy. The Dursleys had made that very clear. He folded the letter carefully, looked once more at the empty kitchen window, and said, Gringotts. The world twisted sideways. Not painfully, it was more like being pulled through a keyhole, squeezed thin and then expanded again. Colors blurred. Sound vanished. For one breathless moment, Harry felt like he was everywhere and nowhere at once, and then, marble. White marble under his trainers, scuffed, and 2 large trainers that had been Dudley's last year. The floor was white and veined with gold, stretching in every direction into a hall so vast it made his head swim. Harry blinked. Looked up. The ceiling was 100 feet above him, supported by pillars carved with scenes of dragons and warriors and piles of treasure. Crystal chandeliers hung in rows, each one larger than Uncle Vernon's car. And all around him, moving with purpose through the hall, were creatures. Not people. Not exactly. They were shorter than Harry, even, with long fingers and sharp features and eyes that caught the light like polished stones. They wore suits of dark fabric and expressions of permanent disapproval, and they moved behind counters piled with gold coins, weighing gemstones, scratching figures into ledgers with quills that moved almost too fast to follow. Goblins, Harry thought, and the word came to him easily, as if someone had whispered it in his ear. One of them had noticed him. A goblin in a charcoal waistcoat stood from behind a low desk near the center of the hall, sharp eyes fixing on Harry with an intensity that would have made most children cry. Harry just stared back. Mr. Potter, the goblin said, and his voice was like gravel scraping against iron. "You came. Your letter said it wasn't optional." Something that might have been approval flickered across the goblin's face. "Follow me. Ironclaw is waiting." Harry followed. His trainer squeaked on the marble, and he was acutely aware of how he looked. Dudley's oversized t-shirt hanging past his knees, his hair an explosion of black tangles, dirt still under his fingernails from the garden. But the goblins they passed didn't sneer at his appearance. They looked at him with something else. Something careful and measuring. They moved through a doorway behind the main counter, down a corridor lined with doors of dark wood, each one carved with symbols Harry didn't recognize. The goblin leading him stopped at the very last door, which was larger than the others and bore a symbol of a sword crossed with a key. "In here." Harry pushed the door open. The office beyond was warm and surprisingly comfortable, bookshelves lining every wall, a fireplace crackling in the corner, and a desk of polished dark wood behind which sat a goblin who was clearly very old. His skin was more weathered than the others, his eyes deeper set, but they burned with the same sharp intelligence. He wore spectacles with thin gold frames and was holding a quill made from a feather Harry had never seen before, deep red, almost the color of blood. "Sit, Mr. Potter," the goblin said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I am Ironclaw. We have much to discuss and very little time in which to be polite about it." Harry sat. The chair was too big for him, his feet dangling above the floor, but he sat straight and met the goblin's eyes. Ironclaw studied him for a long moment. "You are small." "I'm 6. "You are small for 6. It wasn't said with pity, just observation. "Do they feed you, the muggles you live with?" Harry said nothing. His jaw tightened slightly, and that was answer enough. Ironclaw's fingers drummed once on the desk. "As I suspected. Mr. Potter, do you know what you are?" "Apparently something that gets letters from goblins." "You are a wizard." Ironclaw said it flatly, without ceremony. "Your parents were magical. They were murdered by another wizard when you were an infant. You survived a curse that has never been survived before, and you were placed with your mother's non-magical sister. None of this is news to me, but I suspect all of it is news to you." Harry's hands gripped the armrests. His parents. Murdered. He'd been told, car crash, drunks, nothing to discuss, don't ask questions. His whole life compressed into lies told through clenched teeth. "My parents were wizards," Harry said slowly. "A wizard and a witch, yes. James and Lily Potter. They were clients of this bank. Important clients." Ironclaw leaned forward. "Which brings us to why you are here. Mr. Potter, your parents left you a great deal. Wealth, properties, artifacts. But more than that, they left you a name. Several names, in fact. And someone has been making decisions about your accounts. Withdrawals. Redirections. All without your knowledge or consent. Who? That is what we intend to determine. But first, we must establish precisely what you are owed." Ironclaw opened a drawer and produced a shallow stone bowl, about the size of a dinner plate, filled with a shimmering silver liquid. Beside it, he placed a small knife with a bone handle. "This is an inheritance test. 3 drops of your blood in the basin, and it will tell us your full lineage, every house, title, and claim tied to your blood." Harry looked at the knife. Then at Ironclaw. "And you'll tell me what it means?" "All of it. Every word. The Goblin Nation does not deal in half-truths, Mr. Potter. We find them unprofitable." Harry held out his hand. Ironclaw passed him the knife. It was sharp, sharper than anything Harry had ever held, and when he pressed it to his fingertip, it cut so cleanly he barely felt it. 3 drops of blood, bright red, fell into the silver liquid. The reaction was immediate. The liquid blazed gold, then green, then a deep violet, churning like a miniature storm. Ironclaw's eyebrows rose, just slightly, but on a goblin, that was practically a gasp. The liquid settled, and from its surface, a sheet of parchment rose, floating up like a leaf caught in a thermal. Ironclaw plucked it from the air and read. His face went still. Very, very still. "Mr. Potter," he said, and his voice had changed. Quieter. "I need to summon the director." "What does it say?" Ironclaw looked at him over the rim of his spectacles. "It says that this bank has made a very serious error in allowing anyone to manage your affairs without your presence. It says," he stopped himself. Pressed a rune on his desk. Somewhere distant, a bell rang. "Tell me," Harry said. Not demanding. Just certain. The voice of a child who had learned very young that information was survival. Ironclaw placed the parchment on the desk between them and turned it so Harry could read. Inheritance test, Harold James Potter father, James Charles Potter, deceased, mother, Lily Rose Potter née Evans, deceased, houses and titles, most ancient and noble house of Potter, Lord Potter, by blood, paternal line, most ancient and noble house of Peverell, Lord Peverell, by blood, paternal line, dormant since 1612, most ancient and royal house of Slytherin, Lord Slytherin, by right of conquest, October 31, 1981, most ancient and eternal house of Merlin, Lord Merlin, by blood, maternal line, dormant since founding, vaults, 17, combined, properties, 9, combined, seats on the Wisengamot, 11, combined, magical core status, blocked, unauthorized binding detected, placed November 1, 1981, block placed by, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Harry read it all. He read it twice. His face didn't change, but his hands were shaking, not with fear, but with something hotter. Something that burned behind his ribs like a coal someone had been trying to smother for 6 years. "Blocked," he said. "My magic is blocked." "So it appears. By this Dumbledore person. The same wizard who placed you with the Muggles." Harry looked up from the parchment. His green eyes were very bright. "Take it off. Mr. Potter, take it off." Each word precise. Calm. Absolute. "Whatever he put on me, I want it gone. Right now." The door behind Harry opened. He didn't turn around, he didn't flinch, but he heard footsteps. Heavier than a goblin's. He heard the creak of armor. Ironclaw. The voice was deeper than any Harry had heard. Like a rockslide given language. "I came myself when I saw the alert." "What triggered the ancient house's ward?" "Director Ragnok," Ironclaw said, standing. "Allow me to introduce Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell." Silence. Harry finally turned. The goblin standing in the doorway was larger than the others, not taller, exactly, but broader, built like a compressed thunderstorm. He wore armor under his coat, dark iron that gleamed dully, and a thin crown of blackened silver sat on his brow. His eyes were the color of old amber, and when they landed on Harry, they widened. "He's a child," Ragnok said. "He's 6, Ironclaw confirmed. And he has a magical binding that was placed without authorization by Albus Dumbledore." Ragnok stepped into the room. The door closed behind him of its own accord. He moved to the desk, picked up the parchment, and read it. His jaw tightened in a way that made Harry think of a bear trap closing. "For houses," Ragnok said. "Merlin's blood through the maternal line. The Evans woman was, a descendant, yes. Apparently unknown even to her. And Slytherin by conquest." Ragnok set the parchment down. His amber eyes fixed on Harry. "Boy. Do you know who you killed?" "I was told my parents died in a car crash," Harry said. Apparently that was a lie. One of many. Ragnok made a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a growl. "You killed the Dark Lord Voldemort. The most powerful dark wizard of the age. You were 15 months old, and you ended him. By the old laws, his titles and holdings passed to you. Right, Harry said. He filed that away. Dark Lord. Killed him. Baby. Sure. Fine. He'd process that later. The block on my magic. Can you remove it? Ragnok and Ironclaw exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some calculation Harry couldn't read. We can, Ragnok said slowly. We have cursebreakers capable of it. But you should understand, a binding like this suppresses your magical core. It will have been growing behind the block for 6 years, compressed, pressurized. Removing it will be. He searched for the word. Violent. I don't care. You could be in pain. I've been in pain. Harry said it without self-pity. Simple fact. I don't want someone else's lock inside me. Get it out. Ragnok studied him for a long time. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile, goblin smiles never were, but it was genuine. I think I like you, Lord Potter, he said. Ironclaw, summon Cursebreaker Axe Grind. Full ritual suite. And clear the east wing. If this goes the way I think it might, we'll need the space. Things moved quickly after that. Harry was led through more corridors, these ones descending, the marble giving way to raw stone that glittered with veins of crystal. The air grew warmer, heavier, thick with something Harry could almost taste, a charged feeling, like the moment before lightning strikes. They entered a circular chamber carved from living rock. The floor was inscribed with patterns, circles within circles, runes at every intersection, all of it flowing toward a raised stone platform in the center. Torches burned with blue-white fire along the walls, and the ceiling was lost in shadow far above. A new goblin was waiting, female, Harry thought, though it was hard to tell. She was lean and hard-faced, with ritual scars running up both forearms, and she carried a staff of twisted iron. Axe grind, Ragnok said. This is Lord Potter. He has an unauthorized binding from Dumbledore. Full suppression on the magical core. Placed at age 1. Axegrin's nostrils flared. 5 years of compressed growth behind a block. On a child with this lineage? She looked at Harry with something that might have been pity or might have been professional excitement. Director, if I remove this, the release could, I know. The wards might not hold. Then I'll reinforce them personally. Do it. Axegrind nodded sharply. On the platform, boy. Sit cross-legged. Don't move once I begin, no matter what you feel. Harry climbed onto the platform. The stone was warm under his hands, almost alive. He sat as instructed and looked out at the 3 goblins, Ragnok, Ironclaw, and Axegrind, who had arranged themselves at points around the circle. Ready? Axegrind asked. Harry nodded. She began to chant. The language wasn't English, wasn't anything Harry recognized, but he felt it in his teeth, in his bones. The runes on the floor began to glow, first dimly, then with increasing intensity. Blue light crawled up from the stone, wrapping around Harry's body like luminous vines. He felt it then. The block. Now that someone was pushing against it, he could sense it, a wall inside him, heavy and cold, sitting somewhere behind his heart. It was massive. Thick. Like someone had built a dam inside his chest, and behind it was an ocean. Axegrin's chanting grew sharper. The blue light turned white. Harry felt pressure building, not outside, but within. Something enormous pushing against that wall, straining, cracking, pain. Real pain, sudden and absolute. Harry's back arched. His mouth opened but no sound came out. The wall inside him was fracturing, splitting, and through the cracks poured something so vast and bright it felt like swallowing the sun. The first crack sent a shockwave through the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling. The torches blew out simultaneously, but there was more light now, pouring from Harry himself, from his skin, his eyes, radiating outward in waves of raw gold. "Hold the wards!" Ragnok roared. His hands were pressed against the air itself, and Harry could actually see, the magical barriers he was maintaining, translucent walls of force straining against the pressure. The dam broke. Harry screamed. He couldn't help it. 5 years of magic, 5 years of growth and power and potential, exploded outward in a single catastrophic release. The sound was like nothing that existed in nature. The light was blinding. The shockwave slammed into the wards and Ragnok slid back 3 inches, his boots cutting grooves in the stone floor. Above them, in the main hall of Gringotts, every chandelier shattered simultaneously. Quills flew from hands. Coins scattered from scales. Goblins and wizards alike froze as the building shook, a deep subsonic rumble that lasted 7 full seconds. In the ritual chamber, Harry floated. He hadn't chosen to, his body had simply risen from the platform, suspended 3 feet above the stone, crackling with energy that arced between his fingers like tiny lightning bolts. His eyes were open, and they were blazing, not just green, but luminous, lit from within like emerald stars. The magic flowed through him, and for the first time in his life, the first time he could remember, Harry felt whole. The constant tiredness was gone. The fog he hadn't known was there had lifted. Everything was clearer. Sharper. He could feel the wards around the room like spider webs against his skin. He could feel the magic of the 3 goblins, steady and iron-hard. He could feel the bank above them, the hundreds of people moving through it, the ancient enchantments woven into every stone. He could feel everything. Slowly, Harry descended. His feet touched the platform. The crackling faded, sinking back beneath his skin, but it was still there, he could feel it humming in every cell. Ready. The chamber was silent. Axegrind was staring at him with her mouth slightly open. Ironclaw had removed his spectacles and was polishing them with shaking hands. Ragnok was grinning. Full teeth, sharp and gleaming, a predator's smile of pure satisfaction. "Well," the director said. "That was 5 years of growth. Imagine what 10 would have been." Harry looked down at his hands. They looked the same, small, too thin, still dirty from the garden. But they felt different. He felt different. Like he'd been wearing a coat of lead his entire life and someone had finally taken it off. "Is it always like this?" Harry asked. His voice was steady. "Magic?" "No," Axegrind said flatly. "It is not. What you have, the size of your core, I have performed this ritual 40 times. I have never seen anything like this." She paused. "You could have killed us all if the wards had failed." "But they didn't," Harry said. "No." Ragnok's grin hadn't faded. "They didn't. Come, Lord Potter. We have more to discuss, and I suspect the main hall is currently in a state of panic that I should address." He turned toward the door, then stopped. Looked back. "You haven't asked to go home." Harry met his eyes. "I don't have one." Something shifted in Ragnok's expression. Not pity, goblins didn't do pity, but understanding. Recognition of a shared experience, perhaps. The goblin nation had been landless once, too. "Then we'll discuss that as well," Ragnok said. "Among other things." They returned to Ironclaw's office, though the journey back felt different. Harry was aware of things he hadn't noticed before, the protective enchantments layered into the walls, the faint pulse of ancient magic deep below the bank, the way the very air seemed to bend slightly around him as he walked, as if making way. Goblins in the corridors stopped to stare. Word had spread, of the shaking, of the shattered chandeliers, of the child walking beside their director. Harry ignored their looks. He'd had a lifetime of being stared at. This, at least, was for a reason. Back in the office, Ragnok settled into a chair that hadn't been there before, conjured, Harry realized, from the stone itself, and fixed Harry with a direct look. Here is your situation, Lord Potter. You are 6 years old. You hold 4 lordships, 2 by blood, 1 by blood through a line nobody knew existed, and 1 by conquest. You have 17 vaults containing, at rough estimate, more gold than most small nations. You have 9 properties, at least 3 of which are fully warded ancestral manors. You have 11 seats on the Wizengamot, the governing body of magical Britain. And you have a magical corps that my cursebreaker, who has 40 years of experience, just called unprecedented. He folded his hands. You also have a wizard named Albus Dumbledore who bound your magic, placed you in an abusive home, and has been making unauthorized withdrawals from your trust vault for the past 5 years. Harry sat very still. How much has he taken? Ironclaw consulted a ledger that appeared on his desk as if summoned. 40,000 galleons over 5 years. Roughly £200,000 in Muggle currency. Ostensibly directed toward your care and maintenance. I sleep in a cupboard, Harry said. Under the stairs. I eat what they don't finish. I wear my cousin's old clothes. His voice was quiet, but something in the air around him vibrated. The fire in the grate flared. Where did the money go? We are investigating, Ironclaw said carefully, watching the fire. Some appears to have been redirected to an organization called the Order of the Phoenix. Some to individual accounts we have not yet traced. He stole from me. Not a question. Bound my magic. Put me in that house. And no one stopped him. Albus Dumbledore is the chief warlock of the Wizengamot, the supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, and the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Ragnok said. He is, for all practical purposes, the most politically powerful wizard in Britain. People do not stop him. They barely question him. I'm questioning him. Ragnok's amber eyes glinted. Yes. You are. And that brings us to what happens next. He leaned forward. You have options, Lord Potter. You can claim your lordships formally, all 4 of them. At 6, you would normally need a regent, a magical guardian to act on your behalf until you come of age. But the law regarding conquest titles is different. A lord by conquest is considered of age in matters of estate from the moment of claiming. And since your Slytherin title is by conquest, I can act on my own behalf, Harry finished. In matters of estate, finance, and house governance, yes. You cannot cast a vote in the Wizengamot in person until you are 11, but you may appoint a proxy. You can manage your own vaults, access your own properties, and, critically, remove any magical guardian currently assigned to you. Dumbledore. Dumbledore is listed as your magical guardian, yes. He assigned himself the role on November 2, 1981. The day after your parents died. Ironclaw's lip curled. Conveniently, before the will could be read. My parents had a will. All lords of ancient houses have wills. Filed with us. Sealed by Dumbledore under Chief Warlock authority. Ironclaw paused. Would you like it unsealed? Yes. Ironclaw produced a scroll, heavy parchment, sealed with wax that bore the Potter crest. He passed it to Harry, who broke the seal without hesitation. The will was in 2 hands, his father's bold, slightly messy script and his mother's neater, more careful writing. Harry read it standing, because sitting felt wrong for this. These were his parents' last words to the world, and he would give them the respect the universe had denied them. Last will and testament of James Charles Potter and Lily Rose Potter. In the event of our deaths, our son Harry is to be placed in the care of 1. Sirius Orion Black, godfather, sworn oath, 2. Alice and Frank Longbottom, godmother, sworn oath, 3. Minerva McGonagall 4. Remus John Lupin. Under no circumstances is Harry to be placed with Petunia and Vernon Dursley. Lily is explicit in this, her sister hates magic and hates our son by extension. He would not be safe there. Furthermore, Albus Dumbledore is not to be given guardianship or control over Harry's welfare or accounts. We love and respect Albus, but we do not trust his willingness to sacrifice individuals for what he perceives as the greater good. Harry's hands were very steady as he set the will down. The fire in the grate had climbed halfway up the chimney. "Every instruction violated," he said. "Every single one," Ironclaw confirmed. "Sirius Black," Harry said, tasting the name. "My godfather. Where is he?" The goblins exchanged another look. This one was heavier. "Azkaban prison," Ragnok said. "He was arrested on November 3, 1981, accused of betraying your parents' location to the Dark Lord and murdering 13 muggles. He was never given a trial." Harry looked up sharply. "Never. Never. He was sent directly to Azkaban by order of Bartemius Crouch, then head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, with the endorsement of the Chief Warlock." Dumbledore again. Dumbledore again. Harry placed both palms flat on the desk. He was 6 years old. He weighed perhaps 3 stone. His clothes were too big and his ribs were too visible, and there was still garden dirt in the creases of his palms. But his eyes, those burning green eyes, held something that made both ancient goblins straighten in their chairs. "I want to claim my lordships," Harry said. "All 4. Right now. I want my magical guardian removed. I want my vaults secured, no one in or out without my direct authorization. I want the withdrawals investigated, and I want to know exactly where my money went. I want access to my family properties. And I want everything you have on Sirius Black's arrest, because if my parents said he was my guardian, then either he didn't betray them or they were wrong about someone they trusted with my life." He paused. Drew a breath. "Can you do all of that?" Ragnok stood. At his full height, he was barely taller than Harry, but he seemed to fill the room. "Lord Potter," he said, "the Goblin Nation has waited a very long time for someone to walk into this bank and ask us to correct what Albus Dumbledore has done. You are not what I expected, but then, the best allies rarely are." He extended a hand. His grip, when Harry took it, was iron hard. "We accept you as lord of your houses. We will serve as your bank, your ally, and, if you'll permit it, your advisors. Gringotts will seal your accounts within the hour. Dumbledore will find himself locked out by sundown." Harry shook his hand. The magic around him pulsed once, warm and approving, as if the very building recognized something. "There's one more thing," Harry said. "I'm not going back to that house. The Dursleys. I won't." "You have 9 properties," Ironclaw reminded him. "Several are fully maintained by house elves, habitable immediately." "Potter Manor," Ragnok suggested. "In the Welsh Marches. Unplottable. Warded for 1,000 years. Dumbledore himself couldn't find it without an invitation." "Potter Manor," Harry agreed. "But first, the lordship rings. You said I need to claim them?" Ironclaw nodded and produced a wooden box from beneath his desk, old, worn, its lid carved with 4 crests. He opened it, and Harry saw 4 rings resting on dark velvet. Each one was distinct. The first was gold with a ruby, the Potter ring, warmth radiating from it like a small sun. The second was silver with an onyx stone carved in the shape of a serpent, Slytherin, cold and electric. The third was platinum, set with a diamond that seemed to contain a miniature galaxy, Merlin, so ancient the metal itself hummed. The fourth was iron, black as night, with no stone at all, just a symbol etched into its face, a triangle, a circle, a line, Peverell. "Place each on your finger," Ironclaw instructed. "If the house accepts you, it will resize and bond. If it does not..." He trailed off meaningfully. Harry picked up the Potter ring first. The moment it touched his skin, it flared warm, shrinking to fit his small finger, settling with a sensation like coming home. A voice, not quite audible, more like a thought pressed into his mind, whispered welcome, son of my sons. The Slytherin ring was different. Cold as ice, sharp as a blade. When it touched his finger, Harry felt resistance, a testing, a weighing. Power pushed against power. Harry pushed back. Not with force, but with certainty. I won. You're mine. The ring resized with a reluctant snap, like a predator acknowledging a stronger predator. So be it, something hissed, and Harry understood it perfectly. The Merlin ring didn't test him at all. It simply melted into his finger like liquid light, merging with the Potter ring until both occupied the same space on his hand, stacked but weightless. The feeling it gave him was vast, ancient, like looking up at the night sky and realizing for the first time how small the world really was. The Peverell ring was last. Harry's hand hesitated above it, not from fear, but from gravity. This one felt different. Heavier. Not in weight but in meaning. When he picked it up, the room temperature dropped. The fire dimmed. Shadows stretched. He slid it on. Something looked at him. Not the ring. Not a voice. Something beyond, something vast and patient and deeply, deeply old. It examined him, not his magic, not his blood, but his will. His refusal to break. His absolute certainty that he would rather die standing than live kneeling. Worthy, it decided. And settled. The four rings merged into one, a band of shifting metal that seemed to be gold, silver, platinum, and iron simultaneously, depending on the angle. The crest on its face rotated slowly between the four house sigils. Harry held up his hand. Looked at it. A lord. 4 times over. 6 years old with dirt under his fingernails and a cupboard for a bedroom, and he was the most titled wizard in Britain. Something that had been tight and small and suffocated inside him for 6 years finally, fully, completely unclenched. What now? He asked. Ragnok was watching him with something approaching wonder, though he'd never admit it. Now, we prepare. Dumbledore will notice your absence from Privet Drive within hours. He has monitoring charms on the house. When he does, he will search for you. He will not find you. Gringotts is sovereign territory, and Potter Manor is beyond even his reach. But he will search, and he will worry, and eventually he will come here asking questions. Let him come, Harry said. He's the most powerful wizard alive, boy. Harry looked down at his hand. At the ring that contained 4 houses, 1,000 years of magic, the blood of Merlin and the conquest of a Dark Lord. He could feel his own power humming through him, unleashed, unbound, utterly enormous. So am I, he said. Not boasting. Not posturing. Just truth. Ragnok laughed, a real laugh, harsh and barking in full. Yes, he said. I rather think you are. He turned to Ironclaw. Send word to the manor, open the flue, wake the elves, prepare the lord's chambers. And get me Sharpclaw from the warrior division. The boy will need training if he's going to live up to all those titles. I want books, too, Harry said. Everything in my family vaults. Journals, grimoires, histories, everything. I have 6 years of catching up to do, and 5 years before anyone expects me at a school I haven't agreed to attend. You would refuse Hogwarts? Ironclaw asked, surprised. I'm not refusing anything yet. I'm saying I won't go anywhere unprepared. Not again. No one is going to make decisions for me. Not Dumbledore, not anyone. He hopped down from the chair. Can I see a vault? Before I go to the manor? I want to see, he stopped. Swallowed. I want to see if there's anything of my parents. Photos. Letters. Anything. The request, so small, so human amid all the enormity of what had just happened, softened something in Ironclaw's face. The old goblin nodded. The Potter family vault, he said. Vault 687 was your trust. Vault 12 is the family vault. I'll take you myself. The cart ride down to the deep vaults was something Harry would never forget. They plunged into the earth at speeds that should have been terrifying, the darkness rushing past broken only by flashes of crystallized magic in the walls. But Harry wasn't afraid. The wind tore at his hair and the cart rattled and dove, and he felt, for the first time in memory, something like joy. They stopped before an enormous door of dark metal, taller than 3 men. Ironclaw pressed his palm to it, and it opened with the sound of distant thunder. The vault beyond was vast. Mountains of gold coins, galleons, Ironclaw called them, rose in glittering dunes. Gems caught the torchlight. Armor stands held suits of goblin-forged steel. Shelves of books stretched into shadow. But Harry's eyes went past all of it, past the gold, past the weapons, past the artifacts, to a corner where a shelf held simpler things. A wooden box. A stack of leather journals. A folded cloak of silvery material. He walked to the shelf. Opened the wooden box. Photos. Moving photos, people waving, laughing, embracing. A man with Harry's face and wild black hair, grinning with reckless joy. A woman with Harry's eyes, exactly his eyes, green and brilliant, laughing at something off-frame, her red hair caught in wind. His parents. Harry held the photo carefully. His fingers didn't shake. He didn't cry. He'd learned long ago that crying accomplished nothing. But something in his chest, something warm and aching, recognized them. "Hello," he whispered. The photo James threw an arm around Photo Lily and they both waved at whoever had been holding the camera. Young. Happy. Alive. "I'm going to fix this," Harry said, still quiet. "Everything they did, Dumbledore, the Dursleys, all of it. I'm going to fix it." He put the photo in his pocket, where it sat warm against his leg. Then he turned back to the vault. To the gold and the grimoires and the weight of 1,000 years of legacy. "I want the journals," he told Ironclaw. "My mother's and father's. And this." He reached for the silvery cloak, and when he touched it, the Peverell ring pulsed on his finger. The fabric was like water woven into silk. "What is it?" Ironclaw's eyes widened slightly. "That, Lord Potter, is an invisibility cloak. A true one. An heirloom of the Peverell line, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, if the legend is to be believed." Harry folded it over his arm. "Legend? 3 brothers. 3 gifts from Death himself. The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Cloak of Invisibility." Ironclaw paused. The Peverells were the brothers. "If the stories are true, that cloak has been passed down your line for 700 years. Harry ran his fingers over the fabric. "Death's own cloak. Of course. Why not? Add it to the pile. I'll take the cloak, the journals, and I want a list of everything else in here. All the vaults." He pulled himself up straight, an almost comical gesture in his oversized clothes, but something about him made it work. Made it real. "Let's go to the manor." They returned to the surface. The main hall was still in disorder, goblins were sweeping up the remnants of the shattered chandeliers, and several wizard customers were being calmed by account managers. As Harry walked through, following Ragnok, the noise died. People stared. A child shouldn't have drawn attention in a bank, but Harry was drawing it like gravity draws light. Ragnok led him to a private flue chamber, a small room with an enormous fireplace carved with runes of passage. Green powder sat in a pot on the mantel. "Throw the powder in, step into the flames, and say Potter Manor, clearly," Ragnok instructed. He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder, briefly, the touch of an ally, not a parent. "We will be in contact tomorrow. There is much to plan." "Thank you," Harry said. He meant it. Ragnok inclined his head. "Do not thank me yet, Lord Potter. We are allies now, and allies means I will ask things of you in return. The goblin nation has grievances with wizard kind that are centuries old. When you are old enough to take your seats, I expect you to remember who stood with you first. I will. Good. Ragnok stepped back. Welcome home, Lord Potter. Harry took a handful of the green powder. It tingled against his palm. He stepped into the fireplace, cold, no fire yet, and threw the powder down. Green flames erupted around him, warm rather than hot, and the world spun. He tucked his elbows in, held the cloak and journals tight, and said clearly, Potter Manor. The spinning stopped. Harry stumbled forward out of a fireplace and into space. Air. Light. The room was enormous, a great hall, he supposed, with ceilings vaulted in dark wood and walls of honey-colored stone. Tall windows let in afternoon sunlight that fell in golden shafts across a floor of polished oak. Tapestries hung between the windows, showing scenes of Potter ancestors in various heroic poses. A staircase of sweeping proportions rose at the far end. And standing at its base, in a row, were three small creatures, house elves, wearing clean tea towels embroidered with the Potter crest, their enormous eyes fixed on Harry with an intensity that bordered on manic. Master Harry, the middle one squeaked. It was trembling. Actual tears were rolling down its long nose. Master Harry is home. We waited, Mipsy waited, 5 years we kept the manor clean and ready and Master Harry is home, the elf burst into full sobs. The other two weren't far behind. Harry stood very still. No one had ever been happy to see him before. No one had ever waited for him. He didn't know what to do with the feeling that created, too big, too warm, threatening to crack something open that he'd kept sealed shut for a long time. I'm here, he said. I'm home. The elves cried harder. Harry let them. He looked around the great hall. His hall. His home. His family's home for 1,000 years, waiting for him while he slept in a cupboard. The anger that lived in his chest, that hot coal, burned brighter for a moment. Then he breathed, and it settled into something more useful. Not rage. Resolve. He was 6 years old. He had 4 lordships, 17 vaults, and a magical core that had shaken a goblin bank to its foundations. He had a godfather in prison without a trial, a headmaster who had stolen his childhood, and a dead Dark Lord whose title he wore on his hand. In 5 years, he would walk into Hogwarts. And when he did, it would not be as a lost orphan grateful for scraps of knowledge and a place to sleep. It would be as Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell, trained by goblins, armed with the knowledge of 4 ancient houses, and absolutely nobody's pawn. But that was 5 years away. Right now, Harry was 6, and he was tired, and he was home for the first time in his life. Mipsy, he said. The elf snapped to attention so fast her ears flapped. Is there a kitchen? The finest kitchen, Master Harry. The finest, could I have something to eat? Whatever's easy. I'm not fussy. Mipsy looked like she might explode with purpose. At once. Mipsy will make a feast. A feast for Master Harry. She vanished with a crack. The other 2 elves stood at attention, waiting. Harry walked to the nearest window and looked out. Rolling green hills. An ancient forest in the distance. A lake that caught the fading sunlight like a mirror. Wales, Ragnok had said. Unplottable. Invisible to those uninvited. Let him come, Harry had said about Dumbledore. And he'd meant it. But for now, just for this evening, he was going to eat a meal he didn't have to cook himself, sleep in a bed instead of a cupboard, and look at the photos of his parents until he'd memorized their faces. Tomorrow, the work would begin. The sun set over Potter Manor, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and Lord Harry Potter stood at the window of his home and watched it go. Behind him, the ring on his finger shifted between its 4 forms, gold, silver, platinum, iron, as if it, too, was restless. As if it, too, was ready. In London, in a castle in Scotland, an old man's monitoring charms went silent one by one. Silver instruments on shelves stopped spinning. A phoenix on a perch raised its head and sang a single, clear note that sounded, to those who could hear such things, like a warning. And in a small house on Privet Drive, a cupboard under the stairs stood empty. Its door hung open. The small mattress, the broken toys, the single thin blanket, all undisturbed. As if the boy who'd lived there had simply ceased to exist. He had, in a way. The boy in the cupboard was gone. The Lord of Four Houses had taken his place. Chapter 2, Blood and Gold. Harry woke to silence, and for a terrible moment he didn't know where he was. His body had already tensed, the reflex of a child who knew that waking meant Aunt Petunia's knuckles on the cupboard door, meant get up, get moving, earn your space. His fingers were curled tight, his breathing shallow, his eyes open and scanning the dark for the underside of a staircase. But there was no staircase. There was a ceiling, high and vaulted, painted with constellations that moved in slow, stately arcs. There was a bed, enormous, soft in a way that had taken him an hour to fall asleep in because he didn't trust it. There were windows, tall and arched, through which grey dawn light was beginning to creep. Potter Manor. His house. His bed. Harry let out a breath and uncurled his fingers. The ring on his hand caught the faint light, iron, at the moment, the Peverell sigil facing up. He lay still for a moment longer, just breathing. Then he pushed the covers aside and swung his legs over the edge of the bed. His feet didn't reach the floor. The bedroom was larger than the entire ground floor of number 4, Privet Drive. Dark wood furniture. A wardrobe that probably held nothing that fit him. A desk by the window where he'd set his parents' journals last night, untouched yet, he'd been too tired, and somehow too afraid of what they might contain. He padded barefoot to the window. The Welsh hills spread before him in layers of grey and green, mist clinging to the valleys. The forest he'd seen last night was dark against the brightening sky. The lake was a flat disk of silver. Nothing moved. No cars, no neighbors, no Dudley. A soft pop broke the silence. Mipsy appeared at his elbow, ears quivering with barely contained energy. "Master Harry is awake. Mipsy has prepared breakfast, eggs and bacon and toast and porridge and fruit and juice and, thank you, Mipsy." Harry's stomach cramped at the mention of food. Last night's dinner had been the most he'd eaten in a single sitting in his life, and his body still didn't quite believe it was allowed. "I'll come down. Mipsy will bring it here if Master Harry prefers." "No. I'll come down." He wanted to see the house. Learn it. Know where the exits were, where the rooms led, how the space connected. Old habit. Important habit. He dressed in the same oversized clothes from yesterday, there was nothing else, and followed Mipsy down the sweeping staircase into the great hall, then through a corridor into a kitchen that was simultaneously ancient and impossibly warm. Copper pots hung from iron racks. A massive hearth dominated one wall. A long table of scrubbed oak was laid with enough food for 10 people. Harry sat. Ate. Slowly at first, then with more confidence as his stomach accepted that no one was going to take the plate away. Mipsy watched him from the corner with an expression of such desperate happiness that Harry had to look away from it. When he'd eaten as much as he could manage, he sat back and thought. He needed clothes. He needed books. He needed to understand what he was, what he could do, and he needed to start learning. 5 years, Ragnok had said. 5 years until Hogwarts. 5 years to become whatever he needed to be so that no one could ever put him back in a cupboard, ever bind his magic, ever control his life again. But first, he needed to go back to Gringotts. There were questions from yesterday that hadn't been answered, and new ones that had grown overnight in the dark. "Mipsy," he said. "The flu, can I use it to get to Gringotts?" "Yes, Master Harry. The Manor flu connects to the private receiving room at Gringotts. Only Potters can use it." Harry nodded. I'm going this morning. I'll be back by afternoon, I think. Mipsy wrung her hands. Will Master Harry be safe? Harry looked at her, really looked. She was afraid. Afraid he'd leave and not come back. That the house would go quiet again. I'll be back, he said. I promise. Her ears perked up. A promise from the lord of the house was binding magic, and they both felt it settle, a small, warm thread connecting him to this place. An anchor. The Floo deposited him in a private chamber at Gringotts, smaller than the public one he'd used yesterday, with the Potter crest carved above the fireplace. A goblin guard stood outside the door, armed with an axe that looked very much not decorative. Lord Potter, the guard said, snapping to attention. Director Ragnok left instructions. You're to be brought to him immediately on arrival. Harry followed the guard through corridors he was beginning to recognize, up a level from yesterday's route, to a door that was twice as large as Ironclaws and made of what appeared to be solid gold. The guard knocked once, received a barked command from within, and opened it. Ragnok's office was a war room. Maps covered 3 walls, magical Britain laid out in glowing lines and shifting markers. A table held stacks of parchment, and behind it sat the director, looking as if he'd been working through the night. Which, Harry realized, he might have been. Good. You're early. Ragnok gestured to a chair. Sit. We have developments. Harry sat. What developments? Dumbledore came to the bank last night. 7 o'clock. Barely 12 hours after you left Privet Drive. Ragnok's lip curled in something between amusement and contempt. He requested access to your trust vault. You refused. We did. He was displeased. He invoked his authority as your magical guardian. We informed him that his guardianship had been revoked by the Lord of House Potter. He went very quiet for a very long time, and then he asked where you were. You didn't tell him. We told him that the location of our clients is not bank business to share. He left. But he'll be back, and next time he'll bring authority, Wizengamot writs, ministry officials. He's already filing motions this morning. I have sources. Harry absorbed this. Can he force you? Gringotts is sovereign territory under the Treaty of 1403. No wizard authority supersedes our jurisdiction within these walls. But outside them? Ragnok shrugged. He can make your life difficult. File to have your lordship claims reviewed. Challenge the conquest title. Petition for renewed guardianship. Can he succeed? Not if we move faster than he does. Which is why, Ragnok pulled a parchment from the stack and pushed it across the desk. You need a proxy. Someone to represent your interests in the Wizengamot. Someone with political standing that Dumbledore can't easily dismiss. Harry looked at the parchment. It was a list of names. Who do you recommend? I recommend someone who hates Dumbledore as much as you're beginning to. Someone old enough to remember when the houses operated without a meddling headmaster pulling their strings. Ragnok tapped a name near the top of the list. Arcturus Black. Lord of the most ancient and noble house of Black. Your godfather's grandfather. 93 years old, mean as a wounded dragon, and sharp as the day he took his seat 70 years ago. Black. Like Sirius Black. His heir's grandson, yes. Arcturus has spent 5 years trying to get Sirius a trial. Every petition blocked. Every motion buried. Dumbledore and the Ministry want Sirius forgotten, and Arcturus has been fighting alone. Ragnok's amber eyes fixed on Harry. Give him an ally with 11 seats and he will burn the Wizengamot to the ground for you. Harry considered. Is he trustworthy? He's a Black. He's cunning, ruthless, and will prioritize his family's interests over all else. But his family's interests and yours align. A free Sirius means a secured Black succession, and your alliance gives House Black a power base they haven't had in decades. He won't betray you because betraying you would be stupid, and whatever else Arcturus Black is, he is not stupid. Set up a meeting. Ragnok grinned, that sharp, predatory expression Harry was beginning to associate with the goblin being pleased. Already done. He'll be here at noon. Which gives us, he glanced at a clock on the wall that showed 7 different time measurements, 4 hours. Time enough for your first vault tour and to discuss your training. Training? Lord Potter, you have perhaps the largest magical core I have ever seen in a being your size and age. But a core without control is a cannon without aim, impressive, dangerous, and useless in a real fight. The Goblin Nation has warriors who have trained wizards before, cursebreakers, mostly, who work for the bank. I am offering you access to them. What kind of training? Combat magic. Wardcraft. Ritual theory. Occlumency, the art of shielding your mind, which you will need before you meet Dumbledore again, because the old man is a legilimens of the highest order. Ragnok paused meaningfully. He can read thoughts, Lord Potter. From my contact alone. Harry's jaw tightened. Then occlumency first. Agreed. I'll assign Sharp Claw, he's our best. Brutal teacher, but effective. You'll also need physical training. You're malnourished and undersized. We have potions that can correct the damage, but they take months to work and they require proper nutrition alongside them. Fine. Whatever it takes. Ragnok nodded, made a note on a parchment. Now. Your vaults. You have 17. Most are inheritance vaults, gold, gems, the usual. But 4 are of particular interest. He held up fingers as he listed. The Potter family vault, you saw it yesterday. Deep and well stocked. Second, the Slytherin vault. No one has accessed it in over 300 years. It may contain Parseltongue locked items. Do you speak Parseltongue? Harry blinked. What's Parseltongue? The language of serpents. Slytherin's gift, passed by blood or conquest. Try. Ragnok reached into his desk and produced a small carved snake, jade green. He set it on the desk. Speak to it. Harry looked at the little snake. He felt slightly foolish, but something in his chest, something that felt like the cold pulse of the Slytherin ring, stirred. He opened his mouth. What came out wasn't English. It wasn't anything he recognized. It was a sound like water over smooth stones, sibilant and fluid, and the jade snake's tiny carved eyes glowed green. Wake, Harry had said, though he didn't know how he knew that. The snake uncoiled. Stretched. Its jade surface rippled and became scales, and a tiny serpent, no bigger than a pencil, raised its head and looked at Harry with eyes like chips of emerald. Speaker, it hissed. It has been long since a speaker held this office. I'm new, Harry replied. The Parseltongue came without thought, as natural as breathing. Yes. Young. But strong. The magic in you tastes of the old one, Slytherin himself. You are his heir. By conquest. The snake made a sound that might have been a laugh. Better. Earned, not given. I will remember you, young speaker. It curled back into its jade form, a carving again, lifeless. Harry looked up. Ragnok was watching him with open fascination. Parseltongue confirmed, the goblin said. That will give you access to the Slytherin vault's inner chambers. Third vault of note, the Peverell vault. Ancient. Old magic. Likely contains artifacts from the founding age. We don't have a full inventory because no Peverell lord has opened it in 400 years. And fourth, his voice dropped slightly. The Merlin vault. What's in it? We don't know. No one has ever opened it. The vault predates Gringotts. It was here when we built the bank, carved into the bedrock, already sealed, already warded. The door recognizes only Merlin's blood. Your mother could have opened it, had she known. You are the first confirmed heir in living memory. Harry sat with that for a moment. A vault older than the bank itself. Whatever was in there had been waiting for someone with the right blood. Waiting, maybe, for him. I want to see all four, he said. Today. The Slytherin and Peverell vaults, certainly. The Merlin vault. Ragnok hesitated, the first time Harry had seen him do so. I would advise caution. Not delay, caution. We don't know what's in there. Ancient magic can be reactive. I can handle it. That's what concerns me. You believe you can handle it, and you may be right. But belief and certainty are different things, and you are 6 years old. Ragnok held up a hand before Harry could argue. I'm not saying no. I'm saying let's do the others first. See what you find. Get a sense of what these vaults contain. Then the Merlin vault, with full precautions. It was reasonable. Harry didn't like reasonable. Reasonable was usually another word for not yet, not for you, wait your turn, but Ragnok wasn't saying it from a place of control. He was saying it from a place of genuine tactical concern. Harry could read that now, in the goblin's expression. Fine, Harry said. Slytherin first. The cart ride to the Slytherin vault was longer and deeper than yesterday's trip to Vault 12. They descended through layers of rock that grew older as they went. Harry could feel it, the weight of geological time pressing in around them. The crystals in the walls here were darker, pulsing with a deep green luminescence. Ironclaw drove the cart, and he was silent during the descent, which Harry appreciated. He was thinking. Processing. Yesterday had been overwhelming, the inheritance test, the unblocking, the lordships, the manor. He'd gone to bed dizzy with it. But this morning his mind was clearer, colder. The analytical part of him, the part that had learned to read Uncle Vernon's moods from the weight of his footsteps, that had mapped every escape route from number 4, was fully engaged. He had power. He had resources. He had enemies, Dumbledore, obviously, but also whoever else might not want a lord of 4 houses walking free. He needed knowledge, allies, and skill. In that order. The cart stopped before a door of black stone, seamless and smooth, with a carved serpent that wound around its entire surface, tail to mouth. Parseltongue required, Ironclaw said, staying in the cart. I cannot enter. No goblin ever has. Harry stepped out onto the narrow ledge before the door. The serpent carving's eye was a single emerald, and it seemed to watch him approach. Open, Harry said. The serpent moved. Its stone coils unwound from the door, head rising to look at Harry directly. Its emerald eye pulsed. Password, it said. Harry hadn't expected that. He thought for a moment. What would Slytherin have said as a password 1,000 years ago? I am Lord Slytherin by right of conquest, he said. Open for your master. The serpent considered this. Then its mouth opened wide, wide enough to swallow the door itself, and the stone melted away into darkness. The vault was enormous. Not just the size, it was the feel of it. The air was cold and dry and tasted of old magic, preservation charms that had been running for a millennium without interruption. Torches flared to life as Harry entered, green fire that illuminated, books. Thousands of books. Floor to ceiling on shelves that curved with the walls, a library of impossible depth. Harry's breath caught. He walked forward, fingers trailing along spines of leather and metal and materials he couldn't identify. The titles were in various languages, English, Latin, Greek, something that might have been Old Norse, and the subjects. Legilimency and the subtle arts of mind. Parseltongue, theory and application. Blood magics of the founding era. Wardcraft, from personal shields to national boundaries. The Animagus Transformation, a complete guide. Harry pulled a book at random from a shelf. The Nature of Magical Cores, a study by Salazar Slytherin. The pages were preserved perfectly, the ink as dark as the day it was written, and the language, while archaic, was English. Readable. Beyond the library section, the vault opened into a wider chamber. Here were artifacts, wands in cases, robes that shimmered with embedded enchantments, potion ingredients in sealed jars that were probably worth more than their weight in gold. And in the center, on a pedestal of green marble, sat a locket. Silver, with an ornate S in emerald chips on its face. It was beautiful. And it was wrong. Harry felt at the moment he got close, a crawling sensation, like touching something rotten. His scar, the thin lightning bolt on his forehead, prickled. Not painfully, but insistently. Warning. He stopped 3 feet from the pedestal. The locket seemed to pulse. Something inside it was aware of him, something dark and fragmented and hungry. Harry didn't touch it. Instead, he turned back to Ironclaw, who was watching from the vault entrance. "There's something wrong with that locket," Harry said. "It feels sick." Ironclaw's eyebrows drew together. "Wrong how?" "Like there's something alive in it. Something that shouldn't be." The goblin stepped carefully into the vault, approaching the pedestal with professional wariness. He produced a small device from his pocket, crystalline, glowing faintly, and held it toward the locket. The crystal turned black immediately. "Soul magic," Ironclaw said, and his voice had gone flat and cold. "There is a fragment of soul bound to this object. A piece of someone's soul. In a necklace. A Horcrux." The word fell like a blade. The darkest of all dark magics. To create one, a wizard must murder, the act tears the soul, and a fragment can be bound to an object, anchoring the creator to life even if their body is destroyed. Ironclaw looked at Harry with sudden intensity. "The Dark Lord. Voldemort. This is how he survived everything except you." Harry stared at the locket. A piece of Voldemort's soul. In his vault. In a locket that bore the Slytherin crest. "He made this from a Slytherin heirloom," Harry said slowly. "He put part of his soul in my property. He was Slytherin's heir by blood before you took the title by conquest. He would have considered it his right." Harry's eyes narrowed. "Can it be destroyed?" "Yes. Fiend fire. Basilisk venom. Goblin-forged weapons under certain conditions." Ironclaw was still holding the crystal toward the locket, reading something in its patterns. "Lord Potter, the residue here. The magical signature of the soul fragment. It's..." He trailed off. Looked at Harry. Specifically, at his forehead. Harry's hand went to his scar. It was still prickling. Still warning. "No," Harry said. "I need to check," Ironclaw said. "Let me scan you. Now." Harry stood still while the goblin held the crystal toward his forehead. The crystal, which had slowly been returning to its natural pale color, turned black again. The silence in the vault was absolute. "There's one in me," Harry said. Not a question. He could feel it now that he knew what to look for, a tiny dark knot behind his scar, cold and foreign, nestled in his magic like a parasite. "A fragment," Ironclaw confirmed. His voice was controlled, professional, but Harry could see the tension in his jaw. Likely deposited when the killing curse rebounded. It would explain why no one has removed the scar. It's not a normal wound, it's an anchor point. Get it out. It's not that simple. A Horcrux in an object can be destroyed with the object. A Horcrux in a living host, I don't care how complicated it is. There is a piece of the man who murdered my parents living in my head. Get it out." The green fire on the torches flared violently. The air in the vault compressed. Harry's magic was reacting to his emotion, vast and barely leashed. Ironclaw didn't flinch, but he took a careful step back. "We will need axe grind. And possibly a full ritual team. This has never been done before, removing a Horcrux from a living host without killing the host. But we are goblins, Lord Potter. We invented curse-breaking. If anyone can do it, we can. How long? To research and prepare. A week. Perhaps 2. We need to be certain. 2 weeks with a piece of Voldemort behind his scar. Harry's fists clenched. But this wasn't like the magic block, that had been relatively straightforward. This was soul magic. Dark. Old. He wouldn't be stupid about it. 2 weeks, he agreed. Not a day more. And the locket, destroy it. With pleasure. Ironclaw's smile was all teeth. Harry took one more look around the Slytherin vault. Thousands of books. Knowledge. Power. All his, by right of conquest. He'd come back for them, send for them, have them brought to Potter Manor where he could study at his own pace. Mark the locket for destruction and seal the vault behind us, Harry told Ironclaw. I want the entire library catalogued and transported to the manor. Every book, every scroll. It will be done. The Peverell vault was deeper still, so deep the air felt thick and ancient, pressured by the weight of the world above. The door was iron, black and unadorned, bearing only the triangular symbol Harry recognized from his ring. No password this time. The ring on Harry's hand pulsed when he approached, and the door swung inward silently. Inside was smaller than the Slytherin vault, but what it held was different. Older. The magic here wasn't just preserved, it was alive, moving in slow currents like deep ocean water. Harry felt it brush against him as he entered, tasting him, recognizing him. The vault held 3 pedestals. One was empty, the cloak had been in the Potter vault, Harry realized. The second held a ring, gold, with a black stone set in it, cracked down the middle. The resurrection stone. Harry felt it pulling at him, a whisper at the edge of hearing, come closer, touch me, speak to the dead, and he deliberately stepped back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. There was something about that pull he didn't trust. The third pedestal held a wand. Long, slender, made of elder wood with a core that seemed to hum with its own light. Harry reached for it, the wand leapt into his hand. Like a dog greeting its master, eager and immediate. Power surged through his arm, up into his chest, and for a moment Harry felt the ring and the cloak and the wand all connect, 3 points of a triangle closing, and the Peverell magic in his blood sang. The Elder Wand, Harry whispered. It was supposed to be legend. 3 Hallows, the wand, the stone, the cloak. United, they made the Master of Death. And Harry, 6 years old, small and scarred and angry, held 2 of the 3. The third sat on its pedestal, cracked and whispering. He didn't take the stone. The wand felt right in his hand, more than right, it felt like a part of him that had been missing, but the stone was wrong. Patient. Hungry in a way he couldn't explain. Harry tucked the Elder Wand into the waistband of his oversized trousers, absurd, he knew, but he had no holster, no proper wizarding clothes, nothing. He'd fix that today. Ironclaw, he said, stepping back out of the vault. I need wizard clothing. Proper fitting. And a wand holster. Several, if possible. Ironclaw, who had been staring at the wand in Harry's hand with an expression of barely contained shock, pulled himself together. We can arrange a tailor. Twilfit and Tattings do private fittings for the ancient houses. And holsters, Ollivander stocks them, but I'd recommend goblin made. Dragon hide. Resistant to summoning charms and disarming spells. Goblin made, then. They rode the cart back up in silence. Harry held the Elder Wand loosely in one hand and felt the magic of it, deep and ready and unimaginably old. This wand had been wielded by the most powerful wizards in history. Dumbledore himself had carried it, once. Harry remembered reading about the Deathly Hallows in one of his parents' journals last night, a brief mention, half a sentence. Dumbledore won the Elder Wand from Grindelwald in 1945. But it was here. In the Peverell Vault. Which meant either the histories were wrong, or the wand in Dumbledore's possession was something else, or it had found its way home at some point. It didn't matter. It was his now. It had chosen him. The ring on his finger confirmed it, Peverell magic, Peverell blood, Peverell right. When they returned to the upper levels, Ragnok was waiting in the private receiving room. He took one look at the wand in Harry's hand and went very still. Is that what I think it is? The Elder Wand. That was supposed to be destroyed centuries ago. It was in the Peverell Vault. It came to me. Ragnok stared for a moment longer, then shook his head slowly. 4 houses. The Deathly Hallows. A magical core the size of a lake. You are either the greatest gift or the greatest threat this world has seen in 1,000 years, Lord Potter. He straightened. In any case, your noon appointment. Lord Arcturus Black has arrived early. He's in the diplomatic chamber. Shall I tell him you need time, or, no? I'll see him now. Harry paused. But first, the Horcrux situation. In my scar. Does Ragnok know? I briefed him while you were in the Peverell Vault, Ironclaw said. Good. Keep it between us. No one else learns about it until it's been removed. Both goblins nodded. Harry slid the Elder Wand into the makeshift holster he'd fashioned from his belt, still ridiculous, still temporary, and followed Ragnok to the diplomatic chamber. The room was designed to intimidate. High ceiling, dark stone, a single long table of polished obsidian. At its far end sat a man who looked like he'd been carved from the same material. Arcturus Black was ancient, that was immediately clear. His face was all angles and hollows, skin stretched tight over sharp bones, white hair pulled back severely. But his eyes were fully alive, gray as storm clouds, bright with intelligence, fixed on Harry with an intensity that reminded him of Ragnok. A predator's assessment. He wore robes of black with silver trim, and his hands, resting on the table's surface, bore rings of their own. The black family crest caught the light. So, Arcturus said. His voice was dry as parchment but strong. You're the Potter boy. Lord Potter, Harry corrected, not rudely. Simply accurately. One white eyebrow rose. Lord Potter. Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell, if the goblin's message was accurate. Quite the collection of titles for someone who can't reach the top shelf without a stepping stool. Harry pulled out a chair across from Arcturus and climbed into it. His feet dangled. He didn't try to hide it. You're Sirius Black's great-grandfather. I am. Do you believe he's guilty? Arcturus's jaw shifted. Something flickered in those storm-gray eyes, old anger, old grief. I know he's not. Sirius was many things, reckless, stubborn, insufferably Gryffindor, but a traitor? No. The boy worshipped James Potter. He would have died before betraying him. Then why is he in Azkaban? Because it was convenient. Because Bartemius Crouch needed a victory. Because Dumbledore, the name came out like a curse. Allowed it to happen. Endorsed it. Sirius was the named guardian in the Potter's will. With him in prison, Dumbledore could place you wherever he wished. Control your assets. Shape your future. You know about the will. I know about everything, boy. I'm 93. I've had nothing to do for 5 years but dig and scheme and wait for an opportunity that never came. He leaned forward. Until yesterday. When the goblins sent word that Lord Potter had claimed his seats and was looking for a proxy. Ragnok suggested you. Ragnok is clever. Our interests align. I want Sirius free and House Black's name restored. You want justice for what was done to you. Both roads lead through Dumbledore's political fortress, and both require seats in the Wizengamot to tear it down. Harry studied the old man. He was everything Ragnok had described, sharp, ruthless, self-interested. But underneath the political calculation, Harry could see something else. Something raw. This was a man who had spent 5 years knowing his family had been wronged and being powerless to fix it. Harry knew what that felt like. "I have 11 seats," Harry said. "You have the black seats, how many?" 3. Plus 2 I can call in from allied houses who owe me debts. Arcturus's eyes sharpened. "With your 11, that's 16 guaranteed votes. The Wizengamot has 50 seats total. We'd need 9 more for a majority, but we don't need a majority for what I have in mind." "What do you have in mind?" "A trial. For Sirius. Under the old laws, any lord of an ancient house can demand a trial for a member of their house who has been imprisoned without one. You could do it as Lord Potter, Sirius is your godfather. I could do it as Lord Black, Sirius is my heir's grandson. Together, demanding simultaneously. They cannot refuse. The law is absolute. Then why haven't you done it already?" Arcturus's face darkened. "Because every time I've filed the motion, it's been buried. Procedural delays. Lost paperwork. Committee reviews that never conclude. Dumbledore's people on the administrative council slow-walking everything. One lord demanding is easy to ignore. 2 lords demanding, one of them holding 11 seats, is a political earthquake." Harry thought about it. Fast. The way he'd learned to think at Privet Drive, quick assessment, fastest path to the desired outcome. "We do it publicly," Harry said. "Not through paperwork. Not through channels they can bury. We stand up in the Wizengamot and demand it in open session where every member hears and every reporter writes it down." Arcturus went still. Then a smile spread across his face, slow, cold, delighted. It transformed him from a stern old man into something dangerous. "You're 6 years old," he said. "Everyone keeps saying that. I'll stop." Arcturus extended his hand across the table. "Lord Potter. I believe we have an alliance." Harry shook it. The old man's grip was stronger than expected, iron and bone, like shaking hands with a skeleton that refused to lie down. "When is the next Wizengamot session?" Harry asked. 3 weeks. But I can call an emergency session if we have grounds, and an imprisoned lord who never received a trial is grounds. "Do it. Call the session. I'll name you as my proxy, you'll carry my votes until I'm old enough to sit myself." Arcturus inclined his head. "And in return?" "In return, you teach me politics. The old families. How the Wizengamot works, the real mechanics, not the official version. Who owes what to whom. Where the bodies are buried. Literally or figuratively. Both." Arcturus laughed, a short, surprised bark. "Your father was a prankster and your mother was brilliant, but neither of them were cold. Where did you come from, boy?" "A cupboard under the stairs," Harry said. "It's educational." The humor drained from Arcturus's face. His eyes went flat and hard, the gray of them suddenly metallic. "Dumbledore placed you there?" "Yes." "Then Dumbledore will answer for it. Among other things." He stood, tall and rigid despite his age. "I'll file for the emergency session today. It will take a week to process, even I can't accelerate it beyond that. In the meantime, prepare yourself. The Wizengamot will be surprised by you." "Good." Arcturus gathered his cloak, then paused at the door. Turned back. "One more thing, Lord Potter. You should know, my granddaughter, Andromeda, was disowned from the Black family 30 years ago for marrying a Muggleborn. She has a daughter. Nymphadora. 11 years old, about to start Hogwarts. Metamorphmagus, changes her appearance at will. Why are you telling me this?" "Because Andromeda has been writing to me for years, asking to be brought back into the family. And because her daughter, from what I hear, is precisely the kind of chaotic, fiercely loyal person who would appreciate a friend like you. He raised an eyebrow. Politics isn't just about votes, Lord Potter. It's about people. Then he swept out, robes snapping behind him, and Harry was alone in the diplomatic chamber. He sat for a moment. Thinking. Allies. Arcturus for politics. Ragnok for resources and training. And potentially this Nymphadora, a girl his own age, more or less. A potential friend. Harry hadn't had a friend before. The concept was abstract. But he filed it away, not dismissed, just set aside for later consideration. The afternoon was consumed by practicalities. A tailor arrived at the bank, a thin, nervous woman from Twilfit and Tattings who measured Harry with flying tape measures and promised a full wardrobe within 2 days. For Lord Potter, we prioritize, she assured him, eyes wide at the child who spoke with the certainty of a man 3 times his age. Harry ordered everything. Casual robes, formal robes, muggle clothing in his actual size, boots, a winter cloak. All in dark colors, black, deep green, charcoal. Nothing ostentatious. He wasn't interested in looking wealthy. He was interested in looking like someone who shouldn't be underestimated. Ragnok delivered a wand holster that afternoon, dragon hide, black, designed to strap to the forearm. It was sized for an adult, but goblin craftsmanship was adaptive, it shrank to fit Harry's thin arm perfectly. The elder wand slid into it and disappeared against his skin, invisible and instantly accessible. Then came the books. Ironclaw had mobilized a team to begin cataloging and transporting the Slytherin library. The first shipment, 50 books, carefully selected for relevance to a beginner, arrived at Potter Manor by goblin courier that evening. Harry stood in the Manor's library, a vast room he hadn't explored yet, with shelves that rose 3 stories and a rolling ladder system, and watched as the books were placed with care. Occlumency, the Fortress Mind. Basic Combat Magic, a Practical Primer. The Theory of Magical Cores. Ancient Runes, a Foundation. Potions Mastery, Volume 1, Transfiguration, From Theory to Practice. Harry ran his fingers along their spines. 5 years of study ahead of him. 5 years to become what he needed to be. He started that night. Occlumency first, Ragnok had been clear about the priority. Dumbledore could read minds, and their next meeting was inevitable. Harry sat cross-legged on his bed, the book open before him, and read. The concept was straightforward enough. The mind had no natural defenses against magical intrusion. Occlumency was the art of building them, constructing mental barriers, organizing thoughts, creating a fortified inner landscape that a legilimens couldn't penetrate without the subject's knowledge and consent. The book recommended meditation as a starting point. Finding your mental center. Visualizing a space that was entirely yours. Harry closed his eyes. He didn't have to search for long. His mental landscape was already organized, had been, he realized, for years. Survival at the Dursleys had required compartmentalization. Emotions in one box. Observations in another. Escape plans separate from daily routines. He'd built walls inside his own head long before he knew what magic was. Now, with his magic unbound, those walls solidified. He could feel them, not metaphorically, but actually feel them with his magical awareness. The walls became stone. The compartments became rooms. And around all of it, he built something new, a fortress. High walls. Deep foundations. No doors that he didn't put there himself. It came naturally. Terrifyingly naturally. Within an hour of beginning, Harry had basic occlumency shields that the book said should take weeks to develop. His mental fortress was crude, he knew that, could feel the gaps and weaknesses, but it existed. It was real. And it would keep Dumbledore out long enough for Harry to know he was there. He opened his eyes. The room was dark, hours had passed. The candles had burned low. Mipsy had left food on the bedside table at some point, and Harry ate mechanically while reading more, his mind hungry in a way his body had always been at Privet Drive. The next 3 days blurred together. Harry woke each morning before dawn. Ate. Read. Practiced. The Occlumency book was joined by the Combat Magic Primer, and Harry discovered that with his unblocked core, spellcasting was easy. Not the technique, that required practice, repetition, precision. But the power behind it was never the limiting factor. His first attempt at a shield charm, supposed to be a second-year spell at Hogwarts, produced a barrier that cracked the practice dummy Mipsy had found in the Manor's training room. He practiced in the Manor's grounds, acres of private land, warded against detection. The Elder Wand responded to him with an eagerness that bordered on sentient. It didn't just cast spells, it enhanced them. A basic stunning spell became a red bolt that blew a 3-foot crater in the turf. A levitation charm could lift a boulder. Harry learned quickly to moderate. Power without control was dangerous, Ragnok's words echoed. He focused on precision. Small targets. Exact movements. The Elder Wand could amplify anything he pushed through it, so the challenge wasn't force, it was finesse. On the 4th day, Sharpclaw arrived. The Goblin Warrior was nothing like Ragnok or Ironclaw. Where they were politicians and bureaucrats, Sharpclaw was a weapon. Compact, scarred, with arms like knotted rope and eyes that assessed Harry the way a butcher assessed a carcass, looking for the joints, the weak points, the places where force could be most efficiently applied. "You're small," Sharpclaw said. "So are you." A grunt. "I've killed wizards twice my height. It won't be your size that limits you." He circled Harry, examining. "Stand up straight. Hold out your arms." Harry complied. Sharpclaw poked and prodded, ribs, shoulders, legs. His expression soured. Malnourished. Underdeveloped musculature. Weak core stability, physical core, not magical. He stepped back. "We start with basics. Running. Climbing. Body weight exercises. You won't hold a fighting stance for 10 seconds in this condition. And magic? Magic is a tool. Tools are only as good as the hand that wields them. A tired wizard is a dead wizard, doesn't matter how big your core is if you can't stay on your feet long enough to use it." Sharpclaw cracked his neck. "We train every morning. 2 hours. Physical first, then combat casting. I don't do gentle and I don't do breaks. Keep up or don't." Harry kept up. Barely. Those first sessions were brutal, running laps of the Manor grounds until his lungs burned, then push-ups and sit-ups until his muscles screamed, then combat drills with the Elder Wand that tested his reflexes against goblin quick attacks. Sharpclaw didn't pull his strikes. The first time a training hex caught Harry in the ribs, he flew 6 feet and hit the ground so hard his vision blanked. "Get up," Sharpclaw said. Harry got up. He always got up. That was the thing the Dursleys had given him, though they'd never meant to, they'd taught him to endure. Pain was familiar. Exhaustion was familiar. Being hit was familiar. The difference now was that he could hit back. And he learned fast. Sharpclaw noticed it by the end of the first week, the way Harry absorbed correction instantly, the way his body adapted, the way his reflexes sharpened session by session. By the 5th day, he was dodging hexes that should have been too fast for a child his age. By the 7th, he was returning fire accurately enough to make Sharpclaw actually dodge. "Freak of nature," the goblin muttered, not unkindly, after Harry's shield charm deflected a bludgeoning hex that should have overwhelmed it. "Your magic compensates. It's reinforcing your muscles, speeding your reactions. I've seen it in magical creatures, never in a wizard child. Is that normal? Nothing about you is normal, boy. Eat more. Sleep more. Your body is burning fuel faster than you can take it in." He tossed Harry a potion, thick, green, foul-smelling. Nutrition supplement. Drink one every morning. It'll help. Harry drank it. Gagged. Kept it down through sheer stubbornness. The potions helped. So did the food, 3 full meals a day, plus snacks that Mipsy pressed on him at every opportunity. By the end of the second week, Harry could see changes. Not dramatic, he was still small, still thin, but the sharpness of his ribs had softened. The shadows under his eyes were fading. He stood straighter. Moved with more certainty. And his magic was growing. With the block removed and proper nutrition feeding his core, Harry's magical reserves expanded daily. He could feel it, a tide rising inside him, deep and warm and vast. The spells that had been impressive in the first week were effortless by the second. He was moving through the combat primer at 3 times the recommended pace, and the material was running out. "I need more advanced books," he told Ironclaw during one of their now regular meetings. "The primer is too basic." "You've completed a combat manual designed for adult cursebreakers in 2 weeks, Ironclaw said dryly. "Most take a year. Most don't have my motivation." Ironclaw conceded the point and sent him advanced combat magics, warfare spellcasting and dueling, from theory to mastery. Harry devoured them in 3 days. It was during the second week that Ironclaw came to the manor with news. "The Horcrux team is ready," the goblin said. He was standing in the library where Harry was studying ward theory, and his expression was carefully neutral. "Axegrind has developed a ritual. She's reasonably confident." "Reasonably?" 90% survival rate. "She says she could reach 95 if she had another month." Harry set down his book. 90% is fine. "Lord Potter, there is a piece of the Dark Lord in my skull. Every day it stays there is a day it might be affecting me, my thoughts, my emotions, my magic." 90%. "When?" "Tomorrow. Morning. She wants you fasted, no food after midnight." "Done." Ironclaw lingered. "You're remarkably calm about a 10% chance of death." Harry looked at him steadily. "I've been dying slowly for 5 years, Ironclaw. A quick 10% chance is an improvement." The goblin held his gaze for a moment. Then he nodded, once, and left. Harry didn't sleep much that night. Not from fear, from anticipation. He lay in his bed and pressed his fingers to his scar and felt the dark thing behind it. Cold. Alien. A fragment of the man who'd killed his parents, living rent-free in his head for 5 years. Tomorrow it would be gone. Or he would. Either way, it ended. He arrived at Gringotts at dawn. The ritual chamber was the same one where his blocks had been removed, but now it was transformed, more runes on the floor, different configurations, and a team of 5 goblin cursebreakers arranged at points around the central platform. Axegrind stood at the head position, her iron staff crackling with contained energy. Ragnok was there too, standing outside the circle. His face was grim. "Last chance to wait for better odds," he said. "No. Then lie down. Face up. Don't move." Harry climbed onto the platform and lay flat. The stone was cold against his back. He stared up at the shadowed ceiling and breathed. "This will hurt more than the unblocking," Axegrind said, not gently. "The fragment is integrated with your scar tissue and partially entangled with your magical core. We have to separate it without separating you. When the pain comes, don't fight it. Let it pass through you. Understood?" The chanting began. 5 voices in that same ancient language, weaving together into something that pressed against Harry's skin like physical weight. The runes ignited, not blue this time, but gold. Liquid gold light climbing his body, concentrating on his forehead. He felt the fragment react. Panic, not his, its. The thing behind his scar knew what was coming and it thrashed, clawing at his mind like a cornered animal. Harry's occlumency shields held, barely, but the physical sensation was pain. Worse than the unblocking. Worse than anything Uncle Vernon had ever done. His scars split open, blood running hot down his temple, and something screamed inside his head, a high, inhuman shriek of rage and terror. Harry's back arched. His hands clawed at the stone. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to resist, to push back. Don't fight it. Let it pass through you. He went limp. Forced his body to relax even as the pain redoubled. The fragment was being pulled, extracted like a tooth from bone, and it did not want to go. It dug its hooks deeper, trying to anchor, trying to hold on to the living magic it had parasitized for 5 years, the cursebreakers chanting crescendoed. Axigrin's staff struck the ground and the golden light blazed white-hot. Harry felt something tear, not his flesh, deeper than that, at the level of soul, and then the fragment was ripping free, pulled through his scar by the ritual's force, a dark thing like black smoke being dragged into the light. It screamed. A face formed in the smoke, snake-like, terrible, red-eyed, and then it was gone. Consumed by the ritual fire. Burned to nothing in the space of a heartbeat. Harry lay on the platform, blood cooling on his face, gasping. The pain was gone. Not fading, gone. Utterly and completely absent. And in its place was clarity. A cleanness he hadn't known he was missing. Like a window he'd been looking through his whole life had been fogged, and now someone had wiped it clear. It's done, Axigrin said. Her voice was hoarse. The fragment is destroyed. Harry sat up slowly. Touched his forehead. The scar was still there, he could feel it, but it was just a scar now. Dead tissue. No cold. No whispers. No dark thing lurking. How do you feel? Ragnok asked. Harry swung his legs off the platform. Stood. His magic surged in response, pure, clean, and for the first time, there was no contamination in it. No shadow at the edge. He was entirely himself, and the relief of that was so profound he had to close his eyes for a moment. I feel, Harry said, like myself. Ragnok's grim expression cracked into something almost gentle. Almost. Good. Then you'll be ready for what comes next. What comes next? Your new wardrobe arrived this morning. Arcturus's emergency Wisengamot session has been granted, 1 week from today. And there's someone here to see you. Ragnok's tone shifted to something drier. Apparently Arcturus decided not to wait for a formal introduction. They walked up from the depths. Harry could feel the difference in himself with every step, lighter, clearer, his magic flowing without obstruction for the first time. The world seemed sharper. Brighter. The enchantments in the walls were more visible, the magical currents more distinct. Ragnok led him to a comfortable waiting room on the upper level, not the diplomatic chamber, somewhere smaller and warmer. Inside, Arcturus Black stood by a fireplace, and beside him, a girl. About 11, though she looked like she was trying very hard to look older. Her hair was a vivid, aggressive purple. Her face was sharp and lively, with a pointed chin and eyes that were currently cycling between brown and an unusual violet. She was wearing robes that looked slightly too formal for someone who kept tugging at the collar, and she was bouncing on her heels with barely contained energy. Harry Potter, Arcturus said formally. Allow me to introduce my great-granddaughter, Nymphadora Tonks. Don't call me Nymphadora, the girl said immediately, then seemed to remember where she was. I mean, it's Tonks. Just Tonks. Please. She looked at Harry. Her eyebrows went up. You're shorter than I expected. I'm 6. Right. Yeah. Granddad said. She shot Arcturus a look. He also said you were some kind of political genius who was going to shake up the whole Wisengamot, which, no offense, is hard to picture when you're shorter than my mum's umbrella stand. Harry felt something unfamiliar tugging at the corner of his mouth. It took him a moment to identify it as the urge to smile. Give me time. Nymphadora, Arcturus began. Tonks. Is starting Hogwarts in September, Arcturus continued, unbothered. She's been raised on the edge of our world, magical enough to attend, but kept distant from house politics by her mother's estrangement. I'm rectifying that. Granddad's bringing Mum back into the family, Tonks said, and beneath the casual tone, Harry could hear something fierce and glad. Officially. The disownment's being reversed. A gesture of good faith, Arcturus said, looking at Harry. And practical. The Black family needs every ally it can muster for what's coming. Andromeda is talented and her daughter, he glanced at Tonks, is a metamorphmagus of exceptional ability. What's that mean in practice? Harry asked. Tonks grinned. Her face rippled, and suddenly she was looking at him with his own face. His exact features, down to the scar. Green eyes, wild black hair, thin cheeks. It lasted 3 seconds before she shifted back with a laugh. That, she said. Useful, Harry said. I know, right? Mum says it'll get me in trouble. Gran, Arcturus says it'll get me out of it. I figure both are probably true. She dropped into a chair without invitation, all sprawled limbs and easy confidence. So. You're really Lord of 4 houses? At 6. Yes. And you're really going to take on Dumbledore? Yes. And you've got goblin warriors training you in combat magic? Yes. Tonks leaned forward, violet eyes bright. Can I watch? Harry looked at her, this strange, loud, color-changing girl who spoke to him like he was a person rather than a title or a freak or a weapon. Who had asked to watch rather than asked to be protected. You can do more than watch, he said. Can you fight? I'm 11. I haven't started school yet. Neither have I. I started learning 2 weeks ago. I'm ahead of where you'd be after 3 years of Hogwarts. Tonks stared at him. You're having me on. Harry drew the Elder Wand from his holster, smooth, fast, the motion already muscle memory from Sharpclaw's drills. He pointed it at the empty fireplace and said, clearly, incendio. The fire that erupted wasn't a normal fire. It roared to life with a sound like a dragon's breath, blue-white at the center, and the heat pushed both Tonks and Arcturus back a step. Harry cut it with a flick, and the fireplace settled to a normal, cheery blaze. Tonks was staring. Her hair had gone from purple to a shocked white. Not having you on, Harry said. Bloody hell. Language, Arcturus said mildly. Bloody hell, Tonks repeated with emphasis. She looked from Harry to Arcturus. You said he was powerful. You didn't say he was that. He's Lord Merlin, Arcturus said quietly. Among other things. Tonks looked at Harry with new eyes. Not fear, she didn't seem capable of fear, or at least not willing to show it. But respect. And underneath that, something Harry recognized from his own reflection, hunger. The desire to be more. Teach me, she said. When I'm at Hogwarts, during holidays, whenever. I want to learn what you're learning. Harry considered. An ally his own age, well, nearly. Someone in Hogwarts who could be his eyes and ears when he eventually went. Someone loyal, if Arcturus's assessment of her character was right. Deal, he said. But you have to work for it. I don't go easy. Wouldn't want you to. Arcturus watched this exchange with quiet satisfaction. The old man was a chess player, Harry could see, every move calculated, every piece positioned. But his pieces were people who benefited from their positioning, and that made the calculation acceptable. 1 week, Arcturus said. The emergency session. Lord Potter, I'll need your formal proxy declaration before then, signed, sealed, and witnessed by goblin officials. You'll have it tomorrow. And I'd recommend staying out of public view until the session. Let the mystery build. Let Dumbledore search and not find. Let the Wisengamot wonder who this new lord is and why he's demanding a trial for Sirius Black. Agreed. Arcturus gathered himself to leave. Tonks stood too, but with obvious reluctance. She kept glancing at Harry as if she wanted to say more, ask more, learn more. Tonks, Harry said as she reached the door. She turned. Yeah. Your hair looks better purple. She blinked. Then grinned, wide and genuine and startlingly warm. Her hair flushed back to vivid violet. See you in a week, Lord Four Houses. See you. They left. Harry stood alone in the waiting room, the fire crackling beside him, and allowed himself a moment to feel something that was entirely new, anticipation. Not the anxious kind, the eager kind. For the first time in his life, he was looking forward to what came next. That evening, back at the manor, Harry sat in the library with his mother's journal open on his lap. Her handwriting was neat and clear, and she wrote the way she seemed to have lived, with precision, warmth, and occasional flashes of sharp humor. September 3, 1977. Hogwarts. James Potter asked me to Hogsmeade again. That's the 4th time this term. I said no, again, because he's still an arrogant torag, but, and I will deny this if anyone ever reads this, he's gotten better. Less hexing people in corridors. More actual studying. Remus says he's trying to grow up. We'll see. Harry turned pages. Months of school life, friendships, studies. Then, January 15, 1978. Something's wrong with the world outside Hogwarts. People are disappearing. Muggleborn families attacked. There's a wizard, they call him Voldemort, though most won't say it, building an army. Professor Dumbledore gave a speech at dinner about unity and standing together, and it was beautiful, really, but I noticed he didn't say anything concrete about what he's actually doing to stop it. I wonder sometimes if Dumbledore cares more about being seen as the solution than actually solving the problem. That's unkind. But I wonder. Harry ran his thumb over the words. His mother, brilliant, observant, already suspicious of Dumbledore at 17. She'd seen it. She'd known. He read more. Their courtship. Their marriage. The war escalating. And then, July 31, 1980. Harry James Potter. Born this morning, 11:47 p.m. He's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. James cried. I didn't, I was too busy marveling at the fact that I made a person. A whole person. He has my eyes. James says that's the best thing that could have happened. The prophecy changes nothing. He's my son. I will protect him with everything I have and everything I am. The prophecy. Harry's eyes fixed on the word. He didn't know what it meant, not yet. But his mother had known, and it had been important enough to mention in the same breath as his birth. He'd find out. He'd find out everything. Harry closed the journal and set it aside. Stood. Walked to the window where night had fallen over the Welsh hills. 1 week until the Wisengamot session. 1 week until Sirius Black's trial was demanded in front of Magical Britain's entire governing body. 1 week until Dumbledore, and everyone else, learned that Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell was not a myth, not a rumor, but a 6-year-old boy with the power of a god and the patience of a stone. In the library behind him, 50 books waited. In his arm holster, the Elder Wand hummed. On his finger, the ring shifted between 4 sigils. In his chest, his magic, vast and clean and entirely his own, pulsed steady as a heartbeat. He had 1 week. He intended to use every hour of it. Harry turned from the window, pulled the advanced combat text from the shelf, and began to read. Outside, the wind moved across the hills. An owl passed over the manor, invisible to its eyes, a blank space in the landscape. Far away, in a castle in Scotland, Albus Dumbledore sat at his desk with his head in his hands, staring at monitoring instruments that showed nothing, tracking charms that found no one, and a growing certainty that something had gone very, very wrong with his careful plans. He didn't know the half of it. Chapter 3, The Old World Trembles. The morning of the emergency Wizengamot session dawned grey and cold, and Harry Potter stood in front of a mirror in Potter Manor's master bedroom and didn't recognize himself. 2 weeks of proper nutrition, healing potions, and Sharpclaw's brutal training had changed him. He was still small, still 6, still lighter than he should be, but the gauntness had retreated. His cheeks had filled out enough to look healthy rather than haunted. His eyes were clear and sharp, no longer shadowed by exhaustion. His hair was still a wild mess, but somehow, against the dark formal robes he now wore, it looked intentional rather than neglected. The robes themselves were masterwork, Twilfit and Tatting's finest, black with subtle threading of all 4 house colors woven into the fabric. Green for Slytherin at the collar. Gold for Potter along the cuffs. Silver for Merlin at the hem. And iron grey for Peverell in the lining, visible only when he moved. The 4-sigil ring gleamed on his right hand. He looked like a lord. A very small lord, but a lord nonetheless. Master Harry looks very fine, Mipsy said from behind him, tears already forming. She cried at everything. Harry had stopped trying to prevent it. I'm not going to the session myself, Harry reminded her. Arcturus is carrying my proxy. I'll be watching from the gallery. Mipsy knows. But Master Harry still looks very fine. Harry adjusted the holster on his forearm, invisible beneath the sleeve, the Elder Wand a reassuring weight against his skin. He didn't expect trouble today. But he'd learned from Sharpclaw, expect nothing, prepare for everything. The Floo took him to Gringotts first, where Ragnok was waiting with a final briefing. Arcturus filed the demand at 8 this morning, the goblin said, walking briskly through the bank's corridors with Harry keeping pace. The session is at 10. He's calling for an immediate trial for Sirius Black under Article 47 of the Wizengamot Charter, the right of any ancient house to demand judicial review for a member imprisoned without due process. And Dumbledore will be presiding. He's chief warlock, he has no choice but to chair the session. He can't refuse the demand without violating the charter itself, and even he won't do that publicly. He'll try to delay. Defer to committee. Bury it in procedure. Arcturus knows how to handle that. Arcturus has been waiting 5 years for this moment. He'll handle it like a surgeon handles a scalpel. Ragnok stopped at a door. There's a private entrance to the ministry from the bank, old tunnel, treaty guaranteed. It will take you directly to the Wizengamot gallery without passing through the public atrium. No one will see you enter. Good. I don't want Dumbledore to know I'm there until I choose to reveal myself. Ragnok nodded. One thing, Lord Potter. Today is political. Today is about maneuvering, about forcing the ministry's hand on a trial. But understand, once this session ends, once the demand is public record, there is no going back. Dumbledore will know you exist. The ministry will know. The Death Eater remnants will know. Everyone who has an interest in controlling or eliminating you will know exactly who you are and what you can do. Harry met the goblin's amber eyes. Let them. Ragnok's predator's grin flashed. Then go. And Lord Potter, enjoy it. The tunnel beneath Gringotts was ancient, goblin-carved, smooth-walled, lit by crystals that responded to his presence. It descended, then leveled, then rose again, and after 10 minutes of walking, Harry emerged through a hidden panel into a small antechamber behind the Wizengamot gallery. He could hear voices already, the murmur of dozens of people settling into seats. The session was filling up. Word had spread, apparently, that something unusual was happening. An emergency session called by Lord Black, endorsed by the proxy of an unnamed lord holding 11 seats, that was enough to draw every member and half the press gallery. Harry climbed a narrow staircase and emerged into the public gallery, a curved balcony overlooking the Wizengamot chamber below. He chose a seat in the shadows at the far end, where the lighting was poorest, and settled in to watch. The chamber was impressive. Circular, tiered, with 50 seats arranged in a horseshoe around a central floor. The seats were carved stone, each bearing the crest of the house that held it. At the apex sat the chief warlock's chair, larger, elevated, commanding, and in it, Albus Dumbledore. Harry studied the man who had shaped, and ruined, his life. Dumbledore was old. That was the first impression, ancient, even, with a beard that reached his waist and hair of pure silver cascading past his shoulders. He wore robes of deep purple, ostentatiously starred, and half-moon spectacles sat on a nose that looked like it had been broken at least twice. He appeared grandfatherly. Warm. The kind of man you'd trust instinctively. But Harry watched his eyes. Behind those spectacles, Dumbledore's blue gaze was moving constantly, scanning the chamber, tracking who sat where, who spoke to whom. Those weren't the eyes of a kindly old professor. Those were the eyes of a general surveying his battlefield. Harry felt a cold satisfaction. Good. A worthy opponent. He'd have been disappointed otherwise. Below, the seats were filling. Harry recognized few faces. He'd studied the political landscape from Arcturus's notes, but names on parchment were different from bodies in chairs. He spotted a few, a woman with a monocle and severe jaw who must be Amelia Bones, head of magical law enforcement. A squat toad-like woman in pink who was Dolores Umbridge, senior undersecretary. And there, Lucius Malfoy, platinum hair like a banner, settling into his seat with the practiced ease of a man who owned the room. Arcturus entered last. The old man moved like a blade, straight, sharp, cutting through the murmur of conversation by sheer presence. He wore the black family robes, silver and black, and his expression was carved from granite. He took his seat without acknowledging anyone, and the chamber quieted. Dumbledore stood. The silence became complete. "This emergency session of the Wizengamot has been called to order," he said, and his voice carried without effort, magically amplified, rich and resonant. "Lord Black, you have invoked Article 47. The floor is yours." Arcturus rose. 93 years old, and he rose like a man of 50, straight-backed, commanding, his grey eyes sweeping the chamber with undisguised contempt. "Esteemed members of the Wizengamot," he began, and his voice was dry ice, cold enough to burn. "I stand before you today to address a matter of justice that has been denied for 5 years. A matter that shames this body, shames this ministry, and shames every single one of you who sat in these seats and allowed it to happen." Murmurs. Shifting. Dumbledore's expression remained placid, but Harry saw his fingers tighten slightly on the armrest of his chair. On November 3, 1981, Sirius Black, heir of the most ancient and noble house of Black, was arrested, bound, and thrown into Azkaban prison. He was accused of betraying the Potters to the Dark Lord and of murdering 13 Muggles with a single curse. Arcturus let those words hang. He was never charged. Never tried. Never given the opportunity to speak in his own defense. He was simply removed. "Lord Black," Dumbledore interjected gently, "the circumstances of 1981 were, I was not finished, Chief Warlock." Arcturus's voice cracked like a whip. Dumbledore's mouth closed. Several members looked shocked. No one interrupted the Chief Warlock. No one except a man with nothing left to lose. Article 47 of the Wizengamot Charter states, and I quote, "No member of an ancient and noble house shall be imprisoned beyond 30 days without formal trial, save in times of declared national emergency." There has been no declared national emergency since 1982. It is now 1986. Sirius Black has been in Azkaban, without trial, for 5 years. Arcturus's gaze swept the chamber. This is not justice. This is not law. This is tyranny wearing a badge. The murmurs were louder now. Harry watched faces. Bones looked uncomfortable, her jaw tight. Malfoy's expression was unreadable. Several minor house members were exchanging glances. "I invoke Article 47, Arcturus continued. As Lord of House Black, I demand immediate judicial review and formal trial for Sirius Orion Black." This demand is echoed. He drew a parchment from his robes and held it up. "By the proxy I hold for Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell, who speaks with the weight of 11 seats and the right of a godson to demand justice for his guardian." The chamber erupted. Not figuratively, people were on their feet, shouting. Harry heard fragments. "Potter. For houses. That's impossible, where has he been? Lord Slytherin." Dumbledore stood. His expression hadn't changed, still calm, still grandfatherly, but Harry, watching from above, saw the very slight tremor in his wand hand. The old man hadn't known. Hadn't anticipated this. For perhaps the first time in decades, Albus Dumbledore had been surprised. "Order," Dumbledore said, and his voice cut through the chaos with the force of long authority. The chamber settled, reluctantly. "Lord Black. You claim proxy for a Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell. This is an extraordinary claim. Can you verify, verified by Gringotts inheritance test, blood ritual, and lordship ring acceptance," Arcturus said crisply. "Witnessed by Director Ragnok himself. All documentation is filed with the bank and available for review by any member who wishes to question it." He smiled, thin, cold, triumphant. "Do you wish to question it, Chief Warlock?" Dumbledore's blue eyes were calculating behind his spectacles. Harry could almost see the wheels turning, the old man reassessing, recalculating, searching for the angle. "The proxy is noted," he said carefully. "However, the matter of Sirius Black's trial is not a matter for discussion," Arcturus cut in. "It is a matter of law. Article 47 is absolute. 2 ancient houses have demanded, that demand supersedes any procedural authority this body holds. You must grant the trial or you must overturn the charter itself. Which will it be, Chief Warlock?" Silence. Heavy, pressurized silence. Every eye in the chamber was on Dumbledore. Harry watched the old man's face and saw, for the briefest instant, something flash behind those blue eyes. Frustration. Fear. Calculation. "The demand is lawful," Dumbledore said finally. His voice was measured, giving nothing away. "A trial will be scheduled, no." Arcturus's voice was iron. "Not scheduled. Article 47, subsection C, upon demand of 2 or more ancient houses, trial shall commence within 7 days. That is the law, Chief Warlock. 7 days. Not a committee. Not a review. A trial." Dumbledore's jaw tightened. It was barely visible, the man's control was extraordinary, but Harry saw it. And he saw Arcturus see it. The old Black Lord's eyes glittered with savage satisfaction. "Very well," Dumbledore said. "A trial for Sirius Black will be held in this chamber, 1 week from today. The full Wisengamot will sit in judgment. Veritaserum will be administered per standard protocol." He paused. "Is there anything else, Lord Black?" "One thing." Arcturus drew himself up to his full height. "Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell wishes it known that he considers the imprisonment of his godfather without trial to be a personal offense against House Potter. He further wishes it known that any member of this body who moves to obstruct or delay the trial will be considered an enemy of his houses." All 4 of them. Dead silence. Not a breath. Not a rustle of paper. Arcturus inclined his head. "That is all." He sat. The chamber remained frozen. Then, slowly, like ice cracking on a spring river, sound returned. Whispered conversations. The frantic scratching of quick quotes quills in the press gallery. The sound of political reality reshaping itself. Harry leaned back in his gallery seat and permitted himself a small, cold smile. Dumbledore's gaze was sweeping the chamber, searching for something. For someone. His eyes rose to the gallery, scanning faces, and Harry felt the lightest brush against his occlumency shields. A whisper touch of legilimency, unfocused, questing. Harry's walls held without effort. His mental fortress, refined daily for 2 weeks, hardened by practice and the natural talent his occlumency book had called unprecedented, didn't even ripple. Dumbledore's probe slid off like water off glass, and Harry watched the old man's brow furrow slightly. He couldn't find Harry. Couldn't identify him. In a gallery of 60 people, a 6-year-old boy in dark robes in a shadowed corner was invisible to casual inspection, and Harry's magic was held so tightly contained that even a master like Dumbledore couldn't sense it without looking directly. Good. The session dissolved into procedural matters, other business, minor motions, the administrative detritus of governance. Harry watched for another 20 minutes, cataloguing faces and reactions, then slipped from the gallery and made his way back to the tunnel entrance. He was halfway down the corridor when a voice stopped him. "Excuse me." Harry turned. A woman stood at the corridor junction, tall, square-jawed, with close-cropped gray hair and a monocle that glinted in the torchlight. Amelia Bones. Head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. She was looking at him with an expression of studied neutrality that didn't quite hide the intensity underneath. "Can I help you?" Harry said. "You're him," she said. Not a question. The Potter boy. Lord Potter. Her eyes dropped to the ring on his hand, visible, shifting between its 4 forms. Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell. Harry didn't confirm or deny. He waited. Bones studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She crouched, bringing herself closer to his eye level. Not condescending. Practical. "I knew your parents," she said quietly. "James and Lily. They were good people. Brave people. And I have spent 5 years being uncomfortable about what happened to Sirius Black. Uncomfortable isn't the same as doing something about it." She flinched. Slightly, but she flinched. "No. It isn't." The political pressure came from Dumbledore. Bones's jaw worked. Among others. But yes. Primarily. She met his eyes. "I'm telling you this because next week, when the trial happens, I will be the one administering Veritaserum and managing the proceedings. I want you to know that it will be fair. Whatever the truth is, I'll ensure it comes out." Harry studied her. She was sincere, he could read that much. Her discomfort was genuine, her guilt real. She'd been in a position to push for the trial and hadn't, and that ate at her. "Then do your job properly," Harry said. "And we won't have a problem." Something that might have been respect flickered in her eyes. "You're nothing like what I expected." "What did you expect?" "A child." She straightened. "You're not, are you?" "Not really." Harry thought of the cupboard. The darkness. The hunger. The 5 years of learning to survive people who wished he didn't exist. "I never got the chance to be." Bones held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once, sharp, decisive. "1 week, Lord Potter. I'll make sure there are no administrative delays." She turned and walked away, her boots clicking on the stone floor. Harry watched her go. An ally? Maybe. An honest woman in a position of authority, at least. That was rare enough to be valuable. Harry made his way back through the tunnel to Gringotts. Ragnok was waiting in his office, and the goblin didn't bother with pleasantries. "It worked," Ragnok said flatly. "The trial is set." Dumbledore couldn't refuse without breaking the charter in front of 50 witnesses and a dozen reporters. But he'll be working now, calling in favors, preparing countermoves. He doesn't want Black free. "Because free Sirius means a legitimate guardian for me," Harry said. "Someone with legal standing to challenge Dumbledore's actions." "Exactly. Expect the old man to try something before the trial. Not directly against you, he still doesn't know where you are. But he might try to move Black. Transfer him. Arrange an accident. Harry's expression hardened. Can you protect Sirius in Azkaban? The Goblin Nation has no authority in Azkaban. But I've sent word to Arcturus, he's deploying the Black family solicitors to file a protective motion. Any attempt to move or harm the prisoner before trial will be treated as contempt of the Wizengamot. Even Dumbledore won't risk that with the press watching. And if he does anyway? Ragnok's eyes glinted. Then we go louder. If Sirius Black dies or disappears before trial, Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell will stand in the Wizengamot and demand Dumbledore's removal as Chief Warlock. 11 seats demanding. With the public outrage from the press coverage, it would be suicide for anyone to oppose it. Nuclear option. Last resort, Ragnok corrected. But available. Harry nodded. What about the other side? The Death Eaters? Ragnok pulled a parchment from his desk, a list of names. Since Arcturus announced your titles this morning, my intelligence network has been watching. Lucius Malfoy left the session and went directly to his home. 3 owls departed Malfoy Manor within the hour. We intercepted descriptions but not contents. The recipients were Theodore Knott Sr., Corban Yaxley, and Augustus Rookwood. Former Death Eaters. All 3 claimed Imperius at their trials. All 3 were acquitted. All 3 are members of the Wizengamot and voted in bloc on every motion Malfoy supports. Ragnok set the parchment down. They'll be assessing you. A Lord Slytherin who is also the boy who destroyed their master, that's either an opportunity or a threat, depending on their current loyalties. If they're truly loyal to Voldemort, then you're a target. The boy who killed their lord, now grown into a political power that could expose them all. They might try to court you, offer alliance, frame it as natural Slytherin solidarity. Or they might decide you're too dangerous to leave alive. Harry absorbed this calmly. I'll be ready for either. I know you will. Ragnok leaned back. Go home, Lord Potter. Rest. Train. Prepare for next week. The trial will be a spectacle, and you need to be at your best. Harry returned to the manor through the private flue. The afternoon sun was pale through the library windows, and he changed out of his formal robes into training clothes, fitted, dark, allowing free movement. Sharpclaw was due in an hour for their daily session, and Harry wanted to warm up first. He was in the training room, a converted ballroom with goblin-enchanted practice dummies and warded walls, when the wards chimed. Not an alarm. A notification. Someone was at the boundary of Potter Manor's wards, requesting entry. Harry went still. No one should know this location. It was unplottable. The flue was keyed only to Gringotts and the Black family residence. He reached out with his magic, a technique Sharpclaw had taught him, extending his awareness along the ward lines. He felt the presence at the boundary. Old. Powerful. Familiar in its magical signature, though Harry had only felt it once before. Dumbledore. Harry's jaw tightened. The old man shouldn't be able to find this place. Shouldn't even know it existed. But Dumbledore had been headmaster of Hogwarts for decades, had been chief warlock even longer, and he'd been James Potter's mentor. He might have been here before, as a guest. Might have retained enough residual connection to locate the boundary even if he couldn't breach it. The wards held firm. Dumbledore couldn't enter, the manor recognized only the Lord of House Potter and those he explicitly invited. But he was there, at the edge, and he was, waiting. Harry considered. He could ignore it. Let the old man stand at the boundary until he gave up. It would be satisfying. But it would also be a waste. Harry wanted to see him. Wanted to look into those famous blue eyes and know what kind of man could steal a child's magic, imprison his guardian, steal his gold, and place him with abusers. Not read about it. Not hear it second-hand. Know it first-hand. And he wanted Dumbledore to see him. To understand what he'd created through his neglect and cruelty. To look at Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell and know that every decision from this point forward would be dictated not by Albus Dumbledore's grand plan, but by Harry's own. He walked to the Manor's entrance hall. The great front doors were oak, 10 feet tall, carved with protective runes. Harry placed his hand on them and pushed. The grounds of Potter Manor were extensive, rolling lawns, ancient trees, a gravel drive that wound from the front steps to the gate at the property's edge, half a mile away. At that gate, barely visible in the afternoon light, a figure in purple robes stood waiting. Harry didn't walk to the gate. Instead, he focused his magic, reached for the ward matrix, found the communication thread, and spoke. "You're not invited, Dumbledore." His voice carried along the wards, arriving at the boundary as clearly as if he'd been standing 3 feet away. The figure at the gate stirred. Then Dumbledore's voice came back, carried on the same thread, warm, concerned, grandfatherly. "Harry, my boy. I am so relieved you're safe. I've been terribly worried, I'm not your boy." Harry's voice was flat. Cold. "And you haven't been worried. You've been searching. There's a difference." A pause. Then, "Harry, I understand you must be confused. The goblins, they may have told you things, presented information in a certain light, they removed the block you put on my magic." Silence. A long silence. The ward thread hummed. "Harry." Dumbledore's voice had shifted, still warm, but with an undertone of something harder. "That block was placed for your protection. Your magical core was dangerously unstable after Voldemort's attack. Without containment, it could have hurt me. Worse than sleeping in a cupboard. Worse than being starved. Worse than being told my parents were drunks who died in a crash." Harry's magic pulsed, the words responded, flaring brighter along the boundary. Dumbledore took a step back. "You put me in that house. You knew what they were. My parents will specifically said, the blood wards, are not your decision to make. You are not my guardian. You were never authorized to be my guardian. You appointed yourself, sealed my parents' will, stole from my vaults, and imprisoned my godfather without a trial." Harry let each sentence land like a blow. "Give me one reason I should let you within a mile of me." Another long silence. When Dumbledore spoke again, the grandfather mask had slipped, not fully, but enough. His voice was quieter. More careful. "Harry. I made choices that I believed were necessary." "The prophecy, what prophecy?" Dumbledore hesitated. Harry could feel it, the calculation, the weighing of what to reveal and what to withhold. Even now, even caught and exposed, the old man was playing chess. "There is a prophecy regarding you and Voldemort," Dumbledore said finally. "Made before your birth. It suggests that you alone have the power to defeat him, permanently. Everything I have done was in service of preparing you for that destiny. By weakening me. By making me ignorant. By putting me with people who hated me." Harry's voice dripped contempt. "What kind of preparation is that? The blood wards protect you from, I don't need protection. I need to be left alone." Harry's hand closed into a fist at his side. "Here is what's going to happen, Dumbledore. You are going to leave this property. You are going to stop searching for me. In 1 week, Sirius Black will receive his trial, and when he's freed, and he will be freed, he will assume his rightful role as my godfather and guardian. At that point, any legal claim you might try to assert over me becomes void. Harry, please. If you would just let me explain, you've had 5 years to explain. You spent them stealing from me instead." Harry drew a breath. His magic settled, the wards dimming back to their resting state. "Stay away from me. Stay away from my properties. Stay away from my accounts. If you approach me again without invitation, I will consider it a hostile act against the House of Potter, and I will respond accordingly. He released the ward thread. The connection to the boundary severed. Dumbledore's presence was still there, Harry could feel it, but the old man could no longer speak to him, no longer hear him. Harry stood in the entrance hall and breathed. His heart was hammering, not from fear, from adrenaline. From the sheer satisfaction of telling the most powerful wizard in Britain to get lost and meaning every word. After 3 minutes, Dumbledore's presence withdrew from the boundary. Slowly. Reluctantly. But it withdrew. Harry let out a long breath. Turned. Found Mipsy standing behind him, ears flat, eyes wide. Master Harry told off the great Dumbledore, she whispered. Yes. Mipsy is very proud of Master Harry. Something warm flickered in Harry's chest. He nodded, just once, and went to the training room. Sharpclaw was due soon, and Harry had energy to burn. The next 6 days passed in a blur of preparation. Harry trained harder than ever. Sharpclaw pushed him into more advanced combat forms, shield and strike combinations, environmental magic, the basics of ward breaking. The goblin warrior was not effusive with praise, but on the 4th day, he said, "You'll do," which from Sharpclaw was the equivalent of a standing ovation. Arcturus visited twice, once to refine strategy for the trial, once to bring news. Malfoy's block is divided, the old man reported during his second visit. They sat in Potter Manor's study, a comfortable room with deep chairs and a fire that Mipsy kept stoked at all times. Some want to approach you. Others want to wait. Malfoy himself is the key, he's intelligent enough to recognize you as a potential ally but arrogant enough to resent a child holding power over him. Let him resent it, Harry said. I'm not interested in Death Eater alliances. Not alliance. Leverage. Arcturus sipped the brandy Mipsy had provided. Malfoy will try to position himself during or after the trial. He'll want to appear moderate, reasonable. He may even vote for Black's release if he thinks it positions him well. Don't refuse the overture outright, accept it graciously, promise nothing, and remember that every word he speaks is a hook he's trying to set. And Dumbledore? Quiet. Disturbingly quiet. He hasn't made a single public move since the session. No statements, no motions, no counter-filings. Arcturus's eyes narrowed. Which means he's working behind the scenes. Private conversations. Calling in personal loyalties. Whatever he's planning for the trial, we won't see it until it happens. Can he stop it? The trial itself? No. It's legally mandated now, if he cancels or delays, he loses the Chief Warlock's chair. But what happens during the trial? Arcturus shrugged. He could try to control the narrative. Present evidence selectively. Guide the questioning in ways that don't exonerate Black. Bones said she'd ensure it's fair. Amelia is honest. But she's one woman against the weight of 5 years of political narrative. If Dumbledore has convinced enough members that Black is guilty before the first question is asked, then we need to make the evidence undeniable. Harry leaned forward. Veritaserum. They're administering it, yes. Standard protocol for capital cases. Then the truth comes out. Under Veritaserum, Sirius can't lie. If he's innocent, the potion will show it. Unless Dumbledore argues the Veritaserum is unreliable. Unless he questions the dosage, the brewing, the chain of custody. He's done it before, undermined Veritaserum testimony at previous trials by casting doubt on the potion itself. Harry drummed his fingers on the armrest. Then we provide our own Veritaserum. Goblin brewed. Certified by Gringotts Potions Masters. Unimpeachable chain of custody. Arcturus went still. Then he smiled, that slow, dangerous expression. You think like a Slytherin. I am a Slytherin. Among other things. So you are. Arcturus rose. I'll speak to Ragnok about the Veritaserum. If Gringotts certifies it independently, Dumbledore can't question the brewing. He left. Harry sat in the study with the fire crackling and planned. The trial would be won or lost on evidence. Sirius under Veritaserum would provide testimony. But Harry wanted more than testimony, he wanted proof. Incontrovertible, physical proof of what had really happened on November 3, 1981. He sent word to Ironclaw that night, "I need everything Gringotts has on the Potter secret keeper arrangements. Any documentation of who held the Fidelius charm. Any financial records showing who was truly in the Potter's inner circle in the weeks before their death." The response came within hours. Ironclaw was thorough. "Lord Potter, our records show the following. On October 15, 1981, James and Lily Potter purchased a Fidelius charm kit from our curse-breaking division. The charm was cast by James Potter himself, and the secret keeper bond was logged with us as a security measure, standard practice for clients using our protection services." The named secret keeper was Peter Pettigrew. Harry stared at the name. Peter Pettigrew. Not Sirius Black. Not Sirius Black. Documentation. Official. Logged by Gringotts. The goblins had the proof, had always had the proof, that Sirius was innocent. Harry's hands trembled. Not with anger, with the sheer enormity of it. 5 years. Sirius had been in Azkaban for 5 years, and the proof of his innocence had been sitting in a goblin filing cabinet the entire time. No one had asked. No one had thought to ask. Because no one had given Sirius Black a trial, and without a trial, no one had needed to gather evidence. Harry wrote back immediately, "Prepare this documentation for presentation to the Wizengamot. Certified copies, officially witnessed. This ends next week." The days narrowed toward the trial like a funnel. Harry trained. Studied. Planned. His occlumency was now strong enough that Sharpclaw, who had some legilimency training, couldn't breach his outer walls even with focused effort. His combat casting was at a level that the goblin warrior described as 4th-year Auror standard, minimum. His magical control had refined to the point where he could levitate individual grains of sand while simultaneously maintaining a full-body shield charm. He was ready. 2 days before the trial, Tonks came to visit. She arrived via the Flo, keyed in through the Black family connection, authorized by Arcturus, and stumbled out of the fireplace in a sprawl of limbs and purple hair, catching herself on the mantelpiece. Graceful as always, she announced to no one in particular, brushing soot off her robes. "Watch her, Harry." Tonks. Harry was in the library, surrounded by books on legal precedent. "How did the Flo treat you?" "Like a washing machine full of gravel." She righted herself and looked around the library with wide eyes. "Blimey. This is your house. It's enormous. It's a manor. It's a castle." She wandered along the shelves, trailing her fingers over book spines. Her hair shifted from purple to a curious blue as she explored. "Mum told me about it. She came here once, apparently, years ago. Said it was the most beautiful house she'd ever seen." "Your mum knew my parents?" "Not well. She was at Hogwarts when they were, different years, different houses. But she knew them through Sirius." Tonks pulled a book from the shelf, looked at it, put it back. "Mum cried when she heard about the trial, you know. Happy crying. She thinks Sirius is innocent, always has. He is. We have proof." Tonks turned. "Real proof? Not just Veritaserum?" "Gringotts documentation showing Peter Pettigrew was the secret keeper, not Sirius. Peter Pettigrew's dead. Sirius supposedly killed him. Did they find a body?" Tonks opened her mouth. Closed it. I don't actually know. They didn't. They found a finger. One finger and a street full of dead muggles." Harry set down his legal text. "Ask yourself, if you were a wizard who just betrayed your best friends to a Dark Lord, and the one person who knew about it was coming for you, what would you do? Run, Tonks said slowly. Fake my death. Cut off a finger. Blow up the street. Frame the person chasing you. Then disappear. That's. Tonks's hair was shifting rapidly, purple to blue to green to pink, cycling with her emotions. That's cold. That's really, really cold. Pettigrew betrayed my parents and got away with it. And Sirius paid the price. Harry's voice was level, but his magic hummed beneath the surface, a low vibration in the air that made the book pages flutter. Not anymore. Tonks sat down across from him, folding her legs beneath her on the chair in a way that should have looked awkward but somehow looked comfortable. I'm coming to the trial. You're 11. Galleries open to the public. I'm the public. She jutted her chin. Besides, Arcturus wants me there. Says it's good for me to see how the Wizengamot works. And I want to see Dumbledore's face when the evidence comes out. Harry almost smiled. Almost. It should be something. Harry. Tonks leaned forward, and her expression was suddenly serious, more serious than he'd seen from her. Her eyes settled on a steady gray, and her hair calmed to a dark brown. Are you scared? About any of this? He thought about it. Honestly considered it. No, he said. I'm angry. But not scared. Not even of Dumbledore. Especially not of Dumbledore. Harry met her eyes. He put me in a cupboard, Tonks. He stole my childhood. He locked my magic away and left me with people who wished I'd never been born. I've been scared every day for 5 years, scared of Vernon's fists, of Petunia's tongue, of being nothing and no one with nowhere to go. I used up all my fear. There's none left for Dumbledore. Tonks was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the space between them and put her hand on his arm, briefly, lightly. You've got people now, she said. You know that, right? Arcturus. Me. Mum. The goblins. You're not alone anymore. Harry looked at her hand on his arm. Small. Warm. Human contact that didn't come with pain attached. I know, he said. They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Tonks asked about his training, and Harry demonstrated, the combat room becoming an impromptu showcase. She watched with undisguised awe as he ran through Sharpclaw's drills, shield and strike, dodging, counter-cursing. When he blew apart a practice dummy with a reductor curse that left a smoking crater in the warded floor, she actually whooped. You've been doing magic for 2 weeks. 3, now. That's insane. That's actually insane. I've been doing accidental magic my whole life and I couldn't do a quarter of that. You haven't been trained. And your magic is different, your metamorphmagus ability takes up a lot of your core's capacity. But your control should be excellent, shape-shifting requires precision. Tonks blinked. You know, no one's ever said that to me before. Everyone always talks about metamorphing like it's a party trick. It's combat applicable, Harry said matter-of-factly. Espionage, infiltration, psychological warfare. A metamorphmagus in the right situation is more dangerous than a duelist. She stared at him. Then her grin spread, wide, delighted, fierce. You really do think like a Slytherin. I think like a survivor. Slytherin just happens to fit. The day before the trial, Harry had one last visitor. He was in the study, reviewing the evidence package Ironclaw had prepared, Gringotts documents, certified and sealed, ready for presentation, when the floof flared green and Ragnok stepped through. The goblin director rarely left Gringotts. His presence in Potter Manor was significant, and Harry straightened in his chair. Director. Lord Potter. Ragnok brushed non-existent soot from his armor and settled into a chair. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. I want to discuss contingencies. Ragnok's amber eyes were sharp. The trial is set. The evidence is prepared. Arcturus will present, Bones will administer Veritaserum, and the truth will come out. But I don't trust Dumbledore to accept this gracefully. You think he'll disrupt the trial? I think he'll try to control it. Steer it. He may not oppose Black's release directly, the political cost would be too high. But he'll try to spin the narrative. Make it about something other than his own failures. Redirect attention. To what? To you. Ragnok leaned forward. You're the bigger story, Lord Potter. A 6-year-old lord of 4 houses, hidden by Dumbledore, abused by muggles, emerging from nowhere with power and political weight. The press will eat it alive. Dumbledore knows this. He'll try to position himself as concerned, as having had reasons, as someone who made difficult choices for the greater good. The prophecy, Harry said. Ragnok's eyebrows rose. He told you about that? He mentioned it. At the ward boundary. Didn't give details, just said there's a prophecy about me and Voldemort. Ragnok drummed his fingers. That's dangerous information to have loose. A prophecy gives him justification, allows him to argue that everything was in service of your destiny. Preparing you. Tempering you. Tempering me by starving me. I didn't say it was good justification. But it doesn't need to be good, it needs to be sympathetic. The public love Dumbledore. He's their hero, their protector, their wise grandfather. If he stands up and says I did it because the boy needs to be ready to face Voldemort, half the Wisengamot will nod and forgive him. Harry's jaw tightened. So what do I do? You don't let him make the trial about you. Tomorrow is about Sirius Black. About justice denied. About a man rotting in Azkaban while his godson was abused. Keep the focus there. The other battle, your battle with Dumbledore, comes later. On ground of your choosing. And if he forces the issue? If he tries to make it about me during the trial? Ragnok grinned. Sharp. Vicious. Then you respond. Not with anger, with power. Let them see what you are. Let them understand that you are not a piece on Dumbledore's board. But only if he forces it. Don't go looking for the fight tomorrow. I won't be in the chamber. I'll be in the gallery. I know. And that's where you should stay, unless events dictate otherwise. Ragnok stood. Trust Arcturus. Trust the evidence. Trust the law. And if all else fails, he placed a hand briefly on Harry's shoulder. Trust yourself. Harry nodded. Ragnok returned to the flue, paused with a handful of powder. One more thing. We destroyed the locket. The Horcrux is gone, burned clean by fiendfire, contained within our wards. That's 2 of his anchors eliminated. However many more exist, they can be found. In time. Thank you. Save your thanks for after tomorrow. May your gold ever flow, Lord Potter. And your enemies ever fall, Director. Ragnok's grin was the last thing Harry saw before the green flames took him. That night, Harry didn't study. Didn't train. He sat in the Manor's great hall with his mother's journal and read her words until the fire burned low. October 24, 1981. The Fidelius is cast. Peter is secret keeper. James wanted Sirius, but Sirius himself suggested the switch, said he was too obvious, that everyone would expect him. Better to use Peter, who no one would suspect. I don't like it. Something about Peter has been off lately. Nervous. Jumping at shadows more than usual. James says it's just the war wearing on him. Maybe. But I've always trusted my gut, and my gut says be careful. Too late now. The charm is cast. We're hidden. Harry is safe. I hope. 7 days later, she was dead. Peter's nervousness hadn't been the war wearing on him, it had been the guilt of a man who'd already made his deal with the devil. Harry closed the journal. Set it aside. Looked at the ring on his hand, currently showing the Potter crest. Gold and ruby. His father's house. Tomorrow, he said to the empty room. I'll fix one thing tomorrow. The fire crackled. The manor was warm and silent around him. Outside, the Welsh night was dark and starless, and somewhere far to the north, on an island in a frozen sea, a man named Sirius Black sat in a stone cell and didn't know that everything was about to change. Harry went to bed. For the first time in his life, he dreamed of something good, a man with wild black hair and a bark of a laugh, swinging him through the air while a woman with red hair and green eyes watched and smiled. In the dream, they were whole. They were together. They were home. Tomorrow. One thing at a time. Chapter 4, Trial by Fire. The Wizengamot chamber was packed to the walls. Harry slipped into the gallery at 9:45, 15 minutes before the session was called. The public seats were already full, witches and wizards crammed shoulder to shoulder, craning for views of the chamber floor. The press gallery was overflowing, quick quotes quills hovering in formation like a flock of predatory birds. The air crackled with anticipation, a collective held breath. Harry took his usual seat in the far shadows. Tonks was already there, hair a muted brown today, dressed in robes that were slightly too formal for her. She saw him and shifted over, making room. Packed house, she murmured. Half the ministry's in the general gallery. Fudge himself is here, third row. She tilted her chin toward a portly man in a lime-green bowler hat who looked simultaneously self-important and deeply uncomfortable. Minister for Magic, Harry said. He'll be watching which way the wind blows. Grandad says he's a weathervane. Points wherever the pressure pushes him. Then we need to push harder than Dumbledore. Below them, the Wizengamot members were taking their seats. Harry scanned the chamber. Arcturus was already positioned, his face a mask of controlled intensity. Bones sat in the judicial section, her monocle catching the candlelight. Malfoy was in his seat, languid and attentive. And at the apex, Dumbledore. Purple robes. Half-moon spectacles. The grandfather's face firmly in place. He sat in the chief warlock's chair like a man who owned the world. Harry's occlumency shields were tight. His magic was held deep and close, invisible to external sensing. He was just another face in the gallery, small, dark-robed, unremarkable. The clock struck 10. Dumbledore rose. This session of the Wizengamot is called to order, he said. His voice carried that same effortless resonance, the voice of a man used to being listened to. We are gathered today for the formal trial of Sirius Black, demanded under Article 47 of the Wizengamot Charter by Lord Black and by proxy of Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell. A brief pause, barely perceptible, but Harry caught it. Bring in the accused. A door at the chamber's base opened. 2 aurors in crimson robes entered first, wands drawn. Between them, Harry's breath stopped. Sirius Black was a skeleton. That was the only word for it. 6 years in Azkaban had stripped him to the bone, sunken cheeks, hollow eyes, skin stretched gray and papery over a frame that barely held together. His hair was a matted tangle of black reaching past his shoulders. His robes, prison robes, gray and shapeless, hung from his body like a shroud. But his eyes. Even from the gallery, Harry could see his eyes. Dark gray, like Arcturus's, and burning. Not dead. Not empty. Burning. Whatever Azkaban had done to his body, it hadn't extinguished whatever lived behind those eyes. The aurors guided Sirius to a chair at the chamber's center, heavy iron, chains coiled on its arms. When he sat, the chains slithered up and locked around his wrists. He didn't flinch. Didn't react. Just sat, straight back despite his wasted body, and looked directly at Dumbledore. The look he gave the chief warlock was not the look of a broken man. It was the look of a man who had spent 5 years memorizing exactly what he'd say when he finally got the chance. Sirius Orion Black, Dumbledore said, meeting that gaze without visible discomfort. You have been brought before this body to answer charges of, Chief Warlock. Arcturus's voice cracked across the chamber. He was on his feet. Before charges are read, I invoke the right of preliminary evidence under Section 12 of Trial Protocol. Dumbledore's jaw tightened. Almost invisibly, but Harry saw it. Lord Black, preliminary evidence is typically presented after charges are read. Section 12 makes no such stipulation. It states only that any party with standing may present evidence material to the charges at any point during proceedings. I have standing. I have evidence. I present it now. Dumbledore's eyes moved, a quick flick toward someone in the Wizengamot seats. Harry tracked it. Griselda Marchbanks, head of the Procedures Committee. The old woman gave the slightest shake of her head. The rule was clear. Arcturus was within his rights. Proceed, Dumbledore said. Arcturus produced a sheaf of parchments, thick, officially sealed, bearing the Gringotts crest in wax. He held them up so the chamber could see. I hold in my hand certified documents from Gringotts Bank. These documents record that on October 15, 1981, James and Lily Potter purchased a Fidelius charm kit from the Gringotts curse-breaking division. The charm was cast on October 24. As standard practice for clients using Gringotts protection services, the name of the secret keeper was logged and sealed with the bank. The chamber was utterly silent. Not a rustle. Not a breath. The named secret keeper, Arcturus said, his voice carrying to every corner, was Peter Pettigrew. The silence shattered. Shouting. Gasps. The press gallery erupted in a frenzy of scratching quills. Dumbledore's expression didn't change enough, but Harry saw something move behind his eyes. Something cold and calculating. Order. Dumbledore's voice cut through the noise. Order, please. The chamber settled, reluctantly. Lord Black, these documents, their provenance, certified by Director Ragnok himself. Witnessed by 3 senior account managers. The originals are held in Gringotts sovereign vaults, any member may inspect them under bank protocols. Arcturus's smile was razor-thin. Do you wish to challenge the integrity of Gringotts Bank, Chief Warlock? Before the full Wizengamot and the international press. Dumbledore did not. Harry could see the calculation. Challenging goblin documentation publicly would be a diplomatic incident of enormous proportions. The Treaty of 1403 guaranteed goblin banking sovereignty specifically because their records were considered inviolate. The documents are admitted to evidence, Dumbledore said. His voice was perfectly calm. Perfectly controlled. A man who'd just taken a body blow and refused to show it. Furthermore, Arcturus continued, pressing the advantage without mercy, I submit to the body the following observations. Peter Pettigrew was never found. No body was recovered. A single finger was retrieved from the blast site. No magical autopsy was performed. No priori incantatem was cast on Sirius Black's wand to verify what spells he had recently used. He let those facts settle like stones dropping into still water. In short, no investigative work of any kind was done. A man was accused, condemned, and imprisoned on the basis of appearances alone. The witnesses, someone began from the Wizengamot seats. What witnesses? Arcturus turned on the speaker, a thin-faced wizard Harry didn't recognize. Name them. Who testified? Who was interviewed? What witnesses were presented at the trial? He paused. Let the silence answer. There were no witnesses. Because there was no trial. Sirius Black was thrown into Azkaban by ministerial decree, endorsed by the chief warlock, with no evidentiary hearing whatsoever. In the iron chair, Sirius Black sat motionless. His burning eyes were fixed on Arcturus, and something in his face had shifted. Not hope. Something older and more desperate than hope. Recognition that someone was finally fighting for him. "I move," Arcturus said, his voice ringing, "that Veritasirum be administered immediately to the accused and that he be permitted to give testimony regarding the events of October and November 1981. Seconded, came a voice from the Wisengamot seats. Amelia Bones, her square jaw set firm. "As head of magical law enforcement, I second the motion and volunteer to administer the serum personally." Dumbledore looked at Bones. Something passed between them, not legitimacy, just a long look between two people who both knew what was happening. Then Dumbledore inclined his head. "The motion carries. Madam Bones, you may proceed." Bones rose from her seat, carrying a small crystal phial filled with clear liquid. She descended to the chamber floor and approached Sirius. "Mr. Black," she said. "You understand that Veritasirum compels absolute truth. You consent to its administration?" Sirius Black spoke for the first time. His voice was a ruin, cracked and hoarse from years of disuse and dementor cold, but it carried. "I've been waiting 5 years for someone to give me Veritasirum," he said. "Please. Give me the whole bloody bottle." A murmur ran through the chamber, something that might have been sympathy. Bones tilted 3 drops onto Sirius's tongue. His eyes went slightly unfocused, his shoulders relaxing as the potion took effect. The truth compulsion settled over him like a blanket. "State your name," Bones said. "Sirius Orion Black." "Were you the secret keeper for James and Lily Potter?" "No." The word rang clear and absolute. No hesitation. No equivocation. "No. I was never the secret keeper. Peter Pettigrew was. It was my idea. I suggested the switch because I thought I was too obvious a target. I thought Peter would be safe because no one would suspect him." His voice cracked. "I was wrong." Murmurs. Louder now. Harry watched the Wisengamot members' faces, shock, disbelief, dawning horror. Several were looking at Dumbledore. The old man's expression hadn't changed, but his hands were very still on the arms of his chair. "Did you murder Peter Pettigrew?" Bones asked. "No. I tracked him after the Potters were killed. I found him in the street, confronted him. He screamed that I'd betrayed James and Lily, shouted it for everyone to hear. Then he blew up the street behind him, cut off his own finger, and transformed." Transformed? Peter was an unregistered animagus. A rat. Sirius's laugh was broken glass. "He cut his finger off, blew up the street, killed those muggles, and escaped as a rat into the sewers. I was standing in the crater laughing when the Aurors arrived. Not because it was funny, because it was so perfectly, horribly Peter. The coward. The rat." The chamber was absolutely silent except for the frantic scratching of quills. "So to be clear," Bones said, her voice steady but her face pale, "Peter Pettigrew is alive? Unless he's died since. He was alive when he ran. Alive and guilty and free while I sat in Azkaban for his crimes." Sirius's eyes found Dumbledore. The hatred in them was incandescent. "And you? You knew I wasn't the secret keeper. You knew about the switch. James told you, I was there when he told you. November 1st, the day after they died, you told Hagrid to take Harry from the wreckage. I begged you to let me take my godson. You said he had to go to his aunt's house. You knew, Dumbledore. You knew, and you let them take me." The chamber erupted. Not murmurs this time, full shouting. Members on their feet. The press gallery was a madhouse. Harry sat in the shadows above and watched Dumbledore's mask crack. Not shatter. The old man was too skilled for that. But crack, a fissure running through the grandfatherly facade, revealing the cold machinery beneath. Dumbledore's blue eyes were moving fast, calculating, assessing, adapting. Order. Dumbledore's amplified voice silenced the chamber through sheer magical force. I will have order. He waited until stillness returned. Mr. Black's testimony is noted. However, I must point out that the claim regarding my knowledge is not supported by Chief Warlock. Arcturus was on his feet again. Are you cross-examining the witness during his own trial? I am addressing a claim made against me personally, then recuse yourself. Arcturus's voice was thunder. If you are personally accused in the testimony of the accused, you cannot chair these proceedings. Section 9, subsection B, recusal upon conflict of interest. The silence that followed was catastrophic. Harry watched Dumbledore's face, watched him process the trap. If he recused himself, he lost control of the trial. If he refused, he violated procedure in front of 50 witnesses and the press. Dumbledore's fingers twitched on the armrest. 1 second. 2. 3. I recuse myself, he said quietly. Temporarily. For the duration of this witness's testimony only. He rose from the Chief Warlock's chair and descended to a regular Wizengamot seat. Deputy Warlock Marchbanks, if you would. Griselda Marchbanks, ancient, sharp-eyed, and clearly uncomfortable, took the elevated chair. Proceedings continue, she said. Madam Bones, you may resume questioning. Bones turned back to Sirius. The Veritaserum was still active, his eyes slightly glazed, his posture relaxed. Mr. Black. You claim Professor Dumbledore knew Peter Pettigrew was the secret keeper. Can you describe the conversation you referenced? October 25, 1981. The day after the Fidelius was cast. Order of the Phoenix meeting at headquarters. James told Dumbledore, in my presence, and in the presence of Remus Lupin, that the secret keeper was Peter. Dumbledore asked if James was certain of Peter's loyalty. James said yes. I said yes. Sirius swallowed. The chains clinked as his hands shifted. Dumbledore said, he said he trusted our judgment. He looked concerned. But he didn't argue. Bones's gaze flicked to Dumbledore, now seated in the regular section. The old man's expression was unreadable. And when you were arrested, no one asked. No one questioned me. No one administered Veritaserum. Crouch signed the order and I was in Azkaban within 6 hours. I kept telling them, telling the guards, telling anyone who'd listen, that Peter was the traitor. No one listened. No one checked. One final question, Mr. Black. Bones's voice was very controlled. Did you, at any time, serve the wizard known as Lord Voldemort? Never. The word came out like a vow. Never. I would have died first. James was my brother in all but blood. Lily was family. Harry, his voice broke. For the first time, something crumpled in his wasted face. Harry was everything. My godson. I would have died for him. I would have killed for him. I would never, never, have betrayed them. The chamber was silent. The kind of silence that follows truth, heavy, undeniable, ringing. Bones stepped back. The witness's testimony under Veritaserum is complete. I formally certify, as head of the DMLE, that the serum was properly brewed, properly administered, and the subject showed no resistance or deception. She turned to Marchbanks. Deputy Warlock, in light of this testimony and the documentary evidence presented by Lord Black, I recommend immediate acquittal and release. Marchbanks looked out at the Wizengamot. 50 faces staring back. Some horrified. Some guilty. Some carefully neutral. The Wizengamot will vote, Marchbanks said. All in favor of full acquittal of Sirius Orion Black on all charges, raise your wands. Wands rose. Not all at once, some immediately, some after a moment's hesitation, some only after looking around to see which way the majority was going. Harry counted. 32. 35. 40. 43 wands. Out of 49 voting members, Dumbledore having recused himself. The motion passes, Marchbank said. Sirius Orion Black is hereby acquitted of all charges. Release the prisoner. The chains on the iron chair snapped open. Fell away. Sirius sat for a moment, as if he couldn't quite believe it, as if the chains might reform, the vote might be recalled, the last 5 minutes might dissolve into another Azkaban nightmare. Then Arcturus was there. The old man had descended from his seat, moving fast for 93, and stood before his great-grandson's grandson with an expression Harry had never seen on that severe face. Something tender. Something fierce. You're free, boy, Arcturus said. It's over. Sirius looked up at him. His eyes were wet. His ruined face was crumbling. Arcturus, later. Everything later. Right now, stand up. Walk out of this chair under your own power. Sirius stood. His legs shook. He was emaciated, broken, barely upright, but he stood. The chamber watched in silence as Sirius Black straightened to his full height and took one step forward. Then another. The press gallery exploded. Questions shouted. Cameras flashing. The noise was deafening, but Sirius didn't seem to hear it. He was looking at Arcturus, then past him, then around the chamber, searching. Harry, he said. His voice was cracked but desperate. Where's Harry? Is he safe? He's safe. Arcturus's hand was on Sirius's arm, steadying him. He's safe, Sirius. He found us. He's the one who made this happen. He's 6, he's extraordinary. You'll see. But not here. Not now. You need a healer and, the ward alarm screamed. It happened fast, faster than Harry would have thought possible in a supposedly secure government building. The main chamber doors blew inward with a concussive blast that scattered debris across the floor. Smoke poured in, thick, black, magical, and through it came figures in dark robes and white masks. Death Eaters. 7 of them, moving in formation, wands already casting. The first curse hit the Auror guard nearest the door, a sickly yellow bolt that dropped him instantly. The second hit the other guard before he could draw. Then the masked figures were in the chamber, spreading out, and the screaming started. The Wizengamot members scrambled, some for cover, some for their wands, some simply freezing in panic. Spells flew. A killing curse, green, unmistakable, streaked across the chamber and hit an empty chair, blowing it to splinters. One of the masked figures raised his wand and pointed it directly at Sirius Black. The blood traitor dies. For the Dark Lord. The curse was halfway across the chamber, purple, dark, designed to kill, when Harry moved. He didn't think about it. Didn't plan. Didn't hesitate. His body was over the gallery railing before his conscious mind had finished processing the threat. The Elder Wand was in his hand. His magic surged, vast, ready, eager. Harry dropped 20 feet from the gallery to the chamber floor. He should have broken bones. Instead, his magic caught him, cushioned the fall instinctively, setting him down light as a leaf between Sirius and the incoming curse. Protego Maxima. The shield that erupted from the Elder Wand was not a normal shield charm. It was a wall, 10 feet high, blazing gold, solid as castle stone. The purple killing curse hit it and shattered, dispersing into harmless sparks. The shockwave from the impact pushed the nearest Death Eaters back 3 steps. The chamber went still. For one frozen moment, everyone, Death Eaters, Wizengamot members, press, Aurors, stared at the small figure standing at the center of the floor, wand raised, shield blazing, magic pouring off him in visible waves of golden light. Harry Potter. 6 years old. standing between 7 Death Eaters and his godfather like a wall of living fire. Then everything happened at once. The lead Death Eater recovered first. Kill the boy. 3 curses flew simultaneously, killing Curse, Cruciatus, and something black and formless that screamed as it traveled. Harry didn't block. He moved. Sharpclaw's training took over, reflexes honed by 3 weeks of daily combat against a goblin warrior who didn't believe in mercy. He rolled under the killing curse, the green bolt passing so close it ruffled his hair. His wand came up mid-roll and snapped out a stunner that caught the leftmost Death Eater square in the chest. The man flew backward, hit the wall, and didn't get up. The black curse swerved to track him. Harry's shield charm was already reforming, smaller this time, personal, held like a buckler on his left arm. The dark magic splashed against it and hissed, trying to eat through. Harry pushed more power into the shield, felt the Elder Wand respond eagerly, and the curse dissolved. The Cruciatus hit the floor where he'd been standing a half-second earlier. Harry was already 5 feet to the right, firing. Reducto. The blasting curse caught the second Death Eater's wand arm. The man screamed, his wand shattered, his forearm with it. He went down clutching the ruin of his hand. 5 left. They were spreading out now, trying to flank him. Professional. Trained. Not panicking. Harry didn't give them time to regroup. He reached for the deeper magic, the Merlin blood, the Peverell heritage, the raw overwhelming force of a core that was unprecedented in living memory. The Elder Wand sang in his hand as he channeled. Stupefy Maxima. The stunner that erupted wasn't a bolt, it was a wave. A semicircular blast of red light that swept outward from Harry's wand like a scythe. It caught 3 Death Eaters simultaneously, they crumpled like marionettes with cut strings, their shields never fully forming before the force overwhelmed them. 2 left. 1 was running, sprinting for the blown-open doors, abandoning the mission. The other stood his ground, and his wand traced something complex in the air. Dark magic gathered, something big, something Harry could feel pulling at reality itself. Avada, Harry didn't let him finish. The Elder Wand moved in a slash, not a spell with words, something older, something that came from instinct and bloodline and the ancient magic that thrummed in his bones. A whip of pure force, invisible and irresistible, that cracked across the distance and struck the Death Eater's wand from his hand. The wand flew 20 feet. The man staggered. Harry hit him with a stunner before he could recover. The red bolt took him in the face and he dropped like a stone. The fleeing 7th Death Eater reached the doors. Bones was there, somehow she'd circled the chaos, positioned herself at the exit. Her wand moved in a precise arc in Carcerus. Ropes erupted from nothing, wrapping the running man from shoulder to ankle. He hit the ground and skidded, tangled and helpless. Silence fell. The entire attack, from breach to conclusion, had lasted less than 40 seconds. Harry stood at the center of the Wizengamot chamber, surrounded by unconscious Death Eaters, the Elder Wand still raised, his magic still radiating invisible golden pulses. His formal robes were dusty from the roll, his hair wild, and his green eyes burned with a light that had nothing to do with reflected candlelight. He was 6 years old. He had just defeated 7 trained dark wizards in less than a minute. The chamber was so quiet that when a single dropped quill hit the press gallery floor, the sound was audible to everyone. Then Sirius Black, emaciated, shaking, barely standing, said, "That's my godson." And the silence broke. Chaos. Noise. People shouting. Bones was directing Aurors who were flooding in through secondary entrances, too late to help. Wizengamot members were climbing from behind seats, pale and shaken. The press was screaming questions. Harry turned his back on all of it. Turned to face Sirius. His godfather was staring at him with an expression Harry couldn't fully read, amazement, disbelief, something that might have been grief. He was shaking. His legs were barely holding him. But his eyes, Those burning grey eyes were locked on Harry with an intensity that had nothing to do with the magic he'd just witnessed. Harry. Sirius's voice broke on the name. You look just like my dad. I know. Harry's voice was steady, but something in his chest was not. Something was cracking open, something he'd kept sealed since reading his parents' journal. You were supposed to take care of me. Sirius flinched as if struck. I know. Harry, I'm so sorry, don't apologize. Harry's voice was harder than he intended. He forced himself to soften. To remember that this man, this broken, starved, wasted man, had also been a victim. Dumbledore's victim. Pettigrew's victim. It wasn't your fault. You were betrayed too. Sirius dropped to his knees. Not from weakness, from emotion. He was eye level with Harry now, and his grey eyes were streaming. I tried to come for you. That night, I went to get you first. Hagrid was there, said Dumbledore had ordered, I shouldn't have listened. I should have taken you and run. I should have, Sirius. Harry said it quietly. Firmly. The name felt strange in his mouth, new, but right. It's done. It's over. You're free. I'm free. And we have a lot of work to do. A sound came from Sirius, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Both, maybe. He reached out with one shaking hand and touched Harry's face, his fingers barely making contact, as if afraid Harry might dissolve like a dream. You're real, Sirius whispered. I'm real. You just fought 7 Death Eaters. You're 6. I'm aware. Sirius made that sound again, the laugh sob. You sound like Lily. Lily used to, when she was being dry like that, he couldn't finish. He pressed his hand over his eyes and his thin shoulders shook. Harry let him. He didn't touch Sirius, something told him that would be too much, too fast, but he stood close. Present. Real. Arcturus appeared at their side, his face controlled but his eyes bright. We need to move. Both of you. The Aurors will want statements, but you're not obligated to give them tonight, Lord's privilege. Sirius needs a healer, immediately. St. Mungo's? Harry asked. No. They'll be watched. Dumbledore still has allies in the hospital. Arcturus's gaze flicked across the chamber, searching for and finding the old man, who was standing very still near his recused seat, blue eyes fixed on Harry with an expression of absolutely impenetrable calm. Potter Manor. Your elves can provide basic care, and I'll have a private healer there within the hour. Harry nodded. He looked back at Sirius, who was trying to stand and failing. Harry reached out, took his godfather's arm, and felt the man's magic, weak, depleted, ravaged by dementors but still there. Still fighting. Can you walk? Harry asked. I think so. Maybe. If you go slow. We'll go slow. Harry looked at Arcturus. The flue. Private chamber through Gringotts. This way. They moved toward the side exit, Harry supporting Sirius, Arcturus clearing the path. The chamber's chaos closed behind them like water filling a wake. But before they reached the door, a voice cut through the noise. Harry. Dumbledore. Standing now, 10 feet away. The purple robes, the silver beard, the half-moon spectacles, all perfect, all composed. But something was different in his face. Something Harry hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. Harry, my boy, I must speak with you. What just happened, the danger, I handled it. Harry didn't stop walking. Without your help. As I've been handling everything for the last month. The men who attacked, they came for Sirius. If you would allow me to arrange protection, I am my own protection. Harry did stop then. Turned. Met those blue eyes directly, and his acclimacy walls stood firm as Dumbledore's passive legitimacy broke against them like waves on a cliff. You had 5 years to protect my godfather. You chose to let him rot. You had 6 years to protect me. You chose to leave me with abusers. Forgive me if I don't trust your definition of protection. Dumbledore's face didn't change. But something behind those blue eyes, deep, deep down, shifted. The prophecy, Harry. You must understand, I understand that you consider me a weapon. A tool to be shaped for a purpose. Harry held the old man's gaze. The elder wand hummed on his arm, hidden, but there. Did Dumbledore feel it? Did he sense his old wand, now bonded to a 6-year-old boy? I am not your weapon. I am not your tool. I am Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell, and I will deal with Voldemort, or not, on my own terms. Not yours. He turned away. Took Sirius's arm again. Walked to the exit. Dumbledore didn't follow. Didn't call out again. But Harry felt the old man's eyes on his back all the way to the door, felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing. Let him look. Let him see what he'd created. Let him understand that the boy from the cupboard was gone, and what had replaced him was something Albus Dumbledore had never planned for. The private Fleur room was small and quiet after the chaos of the chamber. Sirius leaned heavily against the wall, breathing hard. Walking 30 feet had exhausted him. The Manor, Harry said, pulling powder from the pot. I'll go first. Sirius, can you manage the Fleur alone? I've been in prison for 5 years, not dead. Sirius managed a ghost of a grin, and for a moment, Harry could see the man he must have been. The reckless joy his father's photos showed in a younger Sirius. I can handle a bloody fireplace. Language, Arcturus said. Old man, I've earned the right to every curse word in the English language and several in French. Harry almost smiled. Potter Manor. Step in after me. He threw the powder, spoke the words, and the green fire took him home. He stepped out into the great hall and immediately turned back to the fireplace. 3 seconds. 5. The flames flared green and Sirius stumbled through, catching himself on the mantelpiece, looking around with wide eyes. I've been here before, Sirius whispered. James brought me. Summer before 7th year. The whole gang, me, Remus, Peter, his face spasmed. He didn't finish the thought. Arcturus came through last, brushing ash from his robes with aristocratic precision. The healer will arrive within 30 minutes. Sirius, sit down before you fall down. Sirius sat. Or rather, he collapsed into the nearest chair and stayed there. His body was shaking, fine tremors that he couldn't seem to control. The adrenaline of the trial was wearing off, and what remained was a man who hadn't had a proper meal in 5 years, whose body had been systematically ravaged by dementors, who was running on nothing but willpower and spite. Mipsy appeared with food and potions that Ironclaw had recommended. Harry watched Sirius take the first sip of soup and close his eyes as if the warmth was almost too much to bear. You're safe here, Harry said quietly. The wards are ancient. No one can enter without my invitation. Sirius opened his eyes. Looked at Harry, really looked. You're 6. Yes. You fought 7 Death Eaters. Yes. You faced down Albus Dumbledore. Yes. And you organized this? The trial? The evidence? With help. Arcturus. Ragnok. The goblins. Sirius shook his head slowly. Something in his expression was torn, pride warring with grief. You shouldn't have had to. You're 6. You should be playing. Flying toy broomsticks. Getting into trouble for nicking biscuits. His voice cracked. Not fighting dark wizards and toppling governments. I am what I was made to be, Harry said. And what made me was a cupboard under the stairs and a stolen childhood. I can't be 6 the way I should have been 6. That was taken. But I can be what I am now, and what I am now is powerful enough to make sure no one ever takes anything from me again. Sirius stared at him. And for the first time, Harry saw understanding dawn in those grey eyes, not just of what Harry could do, but of what had been done to him. The magnitude of the damage. The cost of the power. I'm going to kill Dumbledore, Sirius said conversationally. No, you're not. You're going to eat soup and see a healer and sleep in a bed and get better. Harry's voice was firm. And then, when you're strong enough, you're going to help me. Because I need a godfather more than I need another enemy, and Dumbledore isn't worth your freedom. Sirius blinked. Then, slowly, painfully, he smiled. A real smile. Thin and ragged and not quite reaching his eyes yet, but real. Bossy, he said. Lily was bossy too. I know. I have her journals. The smile wavered. Tears again, but quieter this time. She'd be so proud of you. They both would. Harry didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know what to do with the feeling it created, warm and aching, too big for his chest. So he just nodded, and sat down beside Sirius, and waited for the healer. Tonks found them an hour later. She came through the flue at a run, tripped on the hearthstone, caught herself on Arcturus's arm, and nearly knocked the old man into the fire. Merlin's saggy, sorry, Grandad, Harry. She was flushed, breathless, her hair cycling through colors like a broken traffic light. You, the chamber, 7 of them, you jumped off the gallery, I know. I was there. You jumped off a 20-foot gallery and floated down and then she mimed what appeared to be a wand movement combined with an explosion. The wave stunner thing. 3 of them at once. I've never, nobody's ever, you're 6. This seems to be the prevailing observation today. Tonks stopped. Breathed. Looked past Harry at the figure in the chair, at Sirius, wrapped in blankets now, a half-empty bowl of soup in his lap, watching the exchange with exhausted bemusement. Is that, Sirius Black? My godfather. Tonks went quiet. Her hair settled to a muted blue. She looked at the wasted man in the chair and her expression softened, lost its manic energy, replaced by something gentler. Mum talks about you, she said to Sirius. Says you were the only Black who was ever nice to her after the disownment. Sirius squinted. Andy's girl? The metamorphmagus? Tonks. Just Tonks. A ghost of that grin. I remember. Andy sent photos when you were born. You had blue hair then too. Born with it. She managed a small smile. Welcome back, cousin. Sirius's throat worked. He nodded, once. The healer arrived shortly after, a goblin, not a human. Harry had specifically requested goblin medical care. He didn't trust the wizarding hospitals, not yet. Too many Dumbledore loyalists. The goblin healer, a sharp-faced female named Bonecutter who seemed to view Sirius's condition as a personal insult to her profession, spent 2 hours running diagnostics and administering potions. Dementor exposure, she reported to Harry. Sirius was asleep by then, the potions had knocked him out cold. Severe and prolonged. Damage to the emotional centers of the brain, chronic malnutrition, muscle wasting, vitamin deficiency, early-stage bone density loss. Several broken bones healed badly. She shook her head. Months of recovery. Maybe a year before he's fully functional. Will he recover fully? Physically? Yes, with proper treatment. Mentally? Bonecutter hesitated, the first hesitation Harry had ever seen from a goblin. The Dementors leave marks that potions can't touch. He'll have nightmares. Flashbacks. Difficulty with certain emotions, happiness will be harder to access for a long time. He'll need patience. He'll have it. Bonecutter nodded. I'll return daily. Potion regimen will be strict, nutrition supplements, bone strengthening, neural regeneration. No shortcuts. Whatever he needs. Cost isn't a concern. Obviously not, Lord Potter. A flash of goblin humor. Your vaults could fund his recovery 1,000 times over. When the healer left, and Arcturus had retired to a guest room, and Tonks had reluctantly flown home with a promise to return tomorrow, Harry sat alone in the great hall. The fire was low. The manor was quiet. Upstairs, in a guest bedroom, Sirius Black slept a dreamless sleep for the first time in 5 years. Harry was tired. Bone-deep tired, the fight, the magic, the emotional weight of the day pressing down on him like gravity doubled. But he didn't go to bed. Instead, he went to the library. Pulled a fresh parchment from the desk. Dipped a quill. He wrote, Director Ragnok, the trial is won. Sirius is free and recovering at the manor. The attack during the session was coordinated, 7 Death Eaters, organized, with inside knowledge of the timing and layout. Someone told them when and where Sirius would be vulnerable. I need to know who. The attack wasn't random, it was assassination. Someone in the Wisengamot or the Ministry gave them access and information. Additionally, Sirius mentioned Peter Pettigrew is alive, an unregistered Ratanimagus. I want him found. He has information about Voldemort's operations, his Horcruxes, his inner circle. And he owes a debt that hasn't been paid. Tomorrow, I want to discuss the remaining Horcruxes. If Voldemort made one, he made more. We've destroyed 2, the locket and the one in my scar. However many remain, they need to be found and eliminated. Until they are, the Dark Lord isn't truly dead. Finally, the Wisengamot saw me fight today. The secret is out. Lord Potter-Slytherin-Merlin-Peverell is no longer a name on a proxy form. They saw my face, my magic, my wand. We need to discuss what this means strategically. May your enemies ever fall. Lord Harry Potter. He sealed the letter with the 4-sigil ring and gave it to Mipsy for delivery. Then he sat in the library, in his chair, in his house, and let himself feel. Tired. Angry. Satisfied. Sad. All of it, woven together, pressing on his chest. He'd done something today, something real, something permanent. Sirius was free. The truth was public. Dumbledore had been exposed, at least partially. But none of it changed what had already happened. None of it gave back the 5 years Sirius had lost. None of it gave back Harry's childhood, or his parents, or the life he should have had. Harry closed his eyes. Behind his occlumency walls, in the deepest room of his mental fortress, he allowed himself one moment of pure, honest grief. For the parents he never knew. For the godfather he should have grown up with. For the boy he might have been, the happy, careless, loved boy who flew toy broomsticks and stole biscuits and had never seen the inside of a cupboard. That boy was dead. He'd never existed. And mourning him was pointless. But Harry mourned him anyway. Just for a moment. Just in the dark, where no one could see. Then he opened his eyes. Drew a breath. Pulled the Advanced Ward Theory text from the shelf and began to read. Tomorrow there would be more to do. The Death Eaters who'd attacked the trial would be interrogated. The inside man would be found. Pettigrew would be hunted. Dumbledore would maneuver. Sirius would begin his long recovery. And Harry would continue becoming whatever he needed to be. But tonight, just for tonight, he'd done enough. Outside Potter Manor, the night was full of stars. The ward shimmered, barely visible, ancient and strong. Within them, a freed man slept peacefully. An old lord plodded in his dreams. 3 house elves stood guard with fierce devotion. And a boy who was not quite a boy, a lord, a warrior, a force of nature in the body of a 6-year-old, read his books and planned his next move and did not sleep until the first light of dawn touched the Welsh Hills gold. He had won a battle today. The war was barely begun.